The boy was known as Filth. Even though he was born as the highest-ranking noble in the kingdom, still, in the eyes of everyone, he was nothing more than an illegitimate child. He owned nothing in life except the scorn of others. If he had any skill at all, it was in healing. The heavens had gifted him with that ability. In this world, those who studied the healing arts were called healers. They were respected and lived comfortably, no matter their background. So for a bastard like him, becoming a healer was the only way to be accepted by society. Despite burning the midnight oil and working hard, he was still terrible at healing. Hard work simply cannot replace a lack of natural talent. 5 years had passed, and he remained stuck as an apprentice. For most healers, healing was just a job, but for him, it was a daily battle, constantly being belittled and ridiculed for being worthless and stupid. Everyone treated this blonde kid like the lowest form of trash, especially since he was the son of someone so important. Then one day, something strange happened in the library. It scared him half to death. A blue window suddenly appeared in front of him, stating that the player had awakened as a doctor. For a guy who thought his life could never change, this was nothing short of a miracle. At first, he thought he must be hallucinating from exhaustion. He had never even heard a word like that before, and if he had to imagine anything, he would rather it be a harmless delusion than this. Then, out of nowhere, a flash of light blinded everything, and suddenly his clothes changed, as if he were the one in charge of an operator. Just like that, he saw a body in front of him, bleeding out with unstable vital signs. Someone called for a transfusion, and he had no idea what was happening. Words like clamps, forceps, and levift were being thrown around. None of it made any sense to him, yet somehow he knew exactly what to do. The meanings just popped into his head, as if they had always been there. On top of that, he even held his hands above his waist without thinking, as if keeping them sterile. And he suddenly realized he was a doctor about to perform surgery on a ruptured splenectomy. Deep down, he knew that no amount of healing magic could save this patient, but medical science might actually keep him alive. Then, in an instant, he snapped back to reality, and it felt like only a second had gone by. The idea of cutting open someone's stomach to help them seemed like a twisted form of healing to him, almost barbaric, like some kind of fake magic. With a nervous laugh, he told himself it was just a strange dream from overworking. Deep down, he knew it wasn't. Somehow, he had a gut feeling that this way of healing was far better and more reliable than what was usually done. In the land of Lapentina, healing magic didn't help many sick patients, but medical science actually got the job done. The guy's head was spinning like crazy when a window popped up. It congratulated him on awakening to a new occupation as a grade SSS doctor. It told him to check his status window, where his name appeared as Dr. Raymond, though we might call him Dr. Ray from time to time. His occupation level was listed as novice resident, and his title was Dirty Bastard. On top of that, he had no experience points or skill points at level 1. His academic skills showed surgery at D, general medicine at C, beginner medicine at C, herbology at S, and pathology at A. He also had a class skill called Heart of Steel at D, but no bonus skill. The blue window suggested he earn experience points to level up and unlock the full potential of his doctor abilities, even though it made no sense. He was certain this was some kind of miracle. Just then, someone barged in and started mocking him for loafing around all day. Jake and Raymond stood up to leave. The bald-headed bully dumped a bucket of dirty water over him, saying he belonged here in this pile of rags since he couldn't even reach grade F. There was no way he could offer anything to Belland Infirmary. Within seconds, a whole crowd gathered at the door, whispering and laughing about why this loser still hadn't given up. They said he should stop disgracing the name of this place. Suddenly, his friend cut in and warned that if a certain someone heard those insults, the bully would be in serious trouble. They were all so relaxed about everything, since to them, that loser was just a bastard anyway. Apparently, that certain someone was actually the one who got him into the prestigious infirmary in the first place. But everyone was pretty sure that person only brought him here, hoping he'd die in a ditch somewhere and stop being a burden. Filthy water dripped from his face as he heard every word. Out of nowhere, someone called Raymond, saying that Master Lance wanted to see him. Chills ran down his spine, and he rushed over. At the Master Healer's room, bowed to this arrogant big shot, who started talking about how the Shadow Prince had been stuck as an apprentice for 5 years, while most people graduated in about 2. Lance mocked him, pointing out how he started a year before Ray, yet already became a senior grade B healer and a master healer. Healer Ray, sweating bullets, tried to flatter him, saying it was thanks to Master Lance's incredible talent. That was when Lance mentioned how the other certified healers all agreed there was no way in hell Dr. Ray could ever become a real healer. Right then, this arrogant jerk fired him from his apprenticeship. Our guy completely lost it and dropped to his knees, bowing to the ground and begging for just one more chance. Lance told him the only reason he was allowed to stay this long was because of his birth father, and that someone as useless as him would have been kicked out after just a year. Raymond feels lost because being a healer is the only thing stopping society from seeing him as completely useless. If he gets expelled now, he'll never become a real healer. Suddenly, a blue window appears in front of him. It shows that healer Ray can perform surgeries on patients. That's when he realizes he can actually treat people using this ability. So a new idea starts to form in his mind. He pleads for one final chance to prove himself by healing a patient. He believes that even with his grade F medical knowledge, he can still become a proper healer. Now Doc Ray is practically begging Master Lance to give him just one patient to treat. He promises to heal them and earn his way back into the Belland Infirmary with that single opportunity. Master Lance wears a sinister smirk and asks if Raymond thinks this is a game. Then something clicks in his mind. He suddenly knows exactly what to do. He hands Ray a patient's file and tells him to cure this one. If he can succeed, he won't be expelled. On Lincoln Street, this novice resident stands, clutching the papers tightly while a storm of self-doubt rages in his head. He wonders if he can really pull this off, especially since he's never treated a patient before. He reaches the place, takes a deep breath, knocks on the door, and tries to prepare himself for what's ahead. The young man is certain that if he fails, he's finished. He'll get kicked out before finishing his apprenticeship, and this is likely his last chance. If he messes up, he'll lose the opportunity to take the qualification exam and be forced into the label of an uncertified, unofficial healer. Not to mention, he could also be arrested and thrown into prison. That would spark rumors about the bastard turning into a criminal. First a bastard, now a convict. People would say that someone like him could never erase that stain, and it would be better if Raymond just gave up on life. He swallows hard and gets ready to step inside, but out of nowhere the door swings open. It smacks him right in the head, knocking him flat onto his back. The girl on the other side panics when she realizes she's hit him and scattered all his papers across the floor. He then spots the Belland Infirmary symbol and asks if he's really from there. Tears of joy stream down her face as she rushes to welcome him, clearly desperate for help. She calls out to her mom, shouting that the healer they sent for has finally arrived. Her mother comes out, stunned to see him at the door. He stands his ground and greets them with as much confidence as he can gather. The girl's mother respectfully shows him inside. When he tries to explain that he's just an apprentice, she brushes it off and begs him to save her husband no matter what. She admits they weren't expecting anyone to come since they couldn't afford help, and they were getting ready to watch her husband die right in front of them. After reviewing the patient's history, the new resident notices a severe infection around his hip, something that would normally require a grade B healer. Poor patients don't get such high-level treatment. Instead, they can only watch their loved ones slowly die in front of them. It's the same heartbreaking experience he went through as a child. Back then, he begged the infirmary staff to save his mother, crying his eyes out, promising to work harder to repay them, and offering the only coin he had. And now another mother is begging to save her husband, and a daughter is crying, pleading for her father's life. After that, Raymond asks to see the patient. The family happily leads him inside. A blue window suddenly appears, praising his willingness to volunteer. It also awards him a special bonus and 5 skill points. Not sure what those are, he checks for more information. It turns out skill points are earned by completing special tasks or quests and can be used later to buy skills that help treat patients. As luck would have it, Raymond just received a scalpel level medical science quest to treat his very first patient, which could earn him 10 skill points and a bonus level up. The thought of treating his first patient feels enormous, and while he knows he's here for personal reasons, the fire inside him is burning strong. He wants to save this patient no matter what. Maybe he can't do it alone, but with his medical knowledge, there's still a chance. Without any delay, he picks the Surgery D skill, which focuses only on operational treatments but can't handle advanced procedures. He also needs 50 points to level up. This doesn't discourage him though, because he knows leveling up will make things easier. Sooner or later, he will become a great healer and a respected person in everyone's eyes. As he enters to announce his presence, he can't help but notice the awful smell coming from the patient. It's hard to breathe, and this sends him into a panic. Wondering what to do, his mind goes blank. But he pulls himself together and activates his class skill, Heart of Steel. Though not perfect, the skill improves with leveling and gives the doctor an unshakable, steely will. Somehow this calms his heartbeat. Now he can think clearly about the infected area. The mother points to a boil on her husband's hip that keeps swelling. The patient's fever seems to worsen every minute, and he can't even get out of bed. To start, Raymond decides to check his vital signs. He confirms that it hasn't reached septic shock, meaning he can be of help. After that, he examines the problem area and finds a hip abscess. It will heal slowly, but it's a basic condition that can be treated easily. Mother asks if her husband will be alright. Even though a high-level healer could fix this quickly, Raymond reassures her that he'll be fine. From then on, Raymond asks for clean, boiled water to cool down and a sharp knife that has been heated in the fire. This confuses the mother, and she begins to wonder what kind of healing this really is. The young man straight up says it's surgery, while Dr. Ray treats the patient. Mother and daughter can't help whispering to each other, curious about what surgery means. A few moments later, the novice healer is ready wearing a mask, prepares to cut the infected area, but his mother panics. She stops his hand mid-motion and demands a clear explanation of what he's doing to her husband. Disturbed by the sharp knife, the mother insists he use healing magic instead. Ray calms her down and asks for her trust just this once, to let him make her family whole again. The mother still grips his hand holding the knife. Eventually, she lets go, realizing she has no other choice but to allow him to proceed. Meanwhile, Raymond's mind is sharp and focused. He knows he cannot afford a single mistake. He must save this man no matter what. Suddenly, he flashes back to an operating room where he ordered his team to stop a bleeding artery to prevent cardiac arrest. That calm state of clear minds and passionate hearts, as described in general medicine, is exactly what he needs now. Thanks to that knowledge, draining an abscess this size feels quite simple honestly. It's barely worth calling a surgery. The Shadow Prince makes a careful slit into the swollen area and lets the foul-smelling pus drain out. He trembles for a second, but quickly pulls himself together, doing his best to act like a real doctor. The next step, he carefully cleans the drainage using a clean cloth. He keeps at it until no pus remains under the skin. Then, he methodically cuts away all the dead tissue piece by piece with his scalpel. With total focus, Raymond finishes the procedure, and the infected skin can finally breathe. To finish up, he treats the surrounding area with a natural antibiotic herb potion. Stunned, Ray stands up and proudly announces that it's over. The mother and daughter immediately light up with big smiles. They rush over to see the husband. Novice resident finds no trace of fever. He assures them that recovery will take just a few more days. The mother bows deeply, thanking the Shadow Prince for doing what no one else was willing to do. She tells him how many infirmaries they had visited, all of which demanded more money. Not a single one truly examined her husband properly. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she calls this dirty bastard a saint for their family. That hits him harder than he expected. But what surprises him even more is when the little girl suddenly jumps in to hug him. It's the first time Raymond has ever heard genuine words of thanks. And in that moment, he finally feels the pure joy of saving a life. Later, he goes back to tell Master Lance that he saved the man. But Lance doesn't believe a single word from someone he sees as a bold-faced liar. Raymond understands, though coming from an F- healer, it does sound hard to believe. He couldn't even save a life before. But healing isn't some almighty power where you just place your hands and cure any disease. In Lapentina, healing works by boosting a person's vitality. Stirring the body's vitality this way can create powerful effects for several illnesses. But in some cases, it makes no difference at all. For Raymond's first patient, he treated a hip abscess. Boosting vitality with healing would have been useless as long as the infection remained in the body. Lapentina's treatment methods seem to have serious flaws. They've focused entirely on healing and never explored any other approaches. Lance, clearly irritated by this, decides he wants to see for himself. And if this bastard is lying, he's definitely got something coming. He slams the door shut in Raymond's face. Raymond calms himself down, knowing he has done nothing wrong. Suddenly, a window flashes in his face, awarding him 10 skill points. He leveled up, and his occupation would only change when he reached level 40, from novice resident to skilled resident. Slowly, Raymond realizes his progress might make him a specialist, and eventually a professor. He also received a special bonus. He doesn't understand what extra stat points are for. He gets one each time he levels up. He knows attunement helps with surgeries, but has no clue what the other stats do. After looking closely, he figures strength relates to stamina and attunement controls fine, delicate movements. Intelligence uses academic knowledge efficiently, and one more feature is hidden until the criteria are met. He considers putting his extra points into attunement, remembering his unsteady hand while cleaning that abscess. Ray, thrilled and full of hope, can't believe he might really become an amazing healer someday. Even someone ranked as low as grade F can still climb the ladder, and perhaps become the greatest healer Lapentina has ever seen. Just then Lance barges in. He scoffs, saying the patient must have recovered on his own, and throws Raymond another challenge to prove himself at the almshouse. This time, luck won't save him, but that doesn't shake Raymond's spirit. In fact, he sees the almshouse as the perfect starting point for leveling up, since the place functions almost like an emergency room. There is just one problem, though. When he arrives, the other men immediately start mocking him. They treat him like he's some kind of high-class trash. Raymond realizes he might not even get the chance to see a single patient. If he doesn't treat someone in the next 2 weeks, he will definitely lose his apprenticeship. So he needs to find a way out, and fast. With only 2 weeks to prove his worth at the almshouse, Raymond knows Lance is just waiting for him to fail. There's no luck on his side this time. Meanwhile, the place is a complete mess, with every healer rushing through patients like it's a corporate job. At this rate, Raymond might see a patient once a year, let alone in a fortnight. Time isn't on his side, so he has to create his own opportunity. Looking around, his eyes land on Hansen, a mediocre C-grade apprentice busy sweeping the floors. Without a moment's hesitation, Dr. Ray grabs the broom. He takes it from Hansen and switches on his nice person mode, flashing a smile as he tells the apprentice to take a well-earned break. Though his friendly demeanor has limits when it comes to how the apprentices behave, Raymond takes on the cleaning duty just to win some favor with Hansen. Hansen genuinely appreciates the gesture. On top of that, Healer Ray tells him to count on him, especially for the boring tasks like handling bandages and herbs. But then Hansen gets anxious at the thought of Raymond getting close to a patient, worried it might upset the others. Sensing his unease, Raymond flashes his classic puppy dog eyes, assuring Hansen that everything will be fine. He adds that most of the others stay in their rooms unless a new patient shows up, so no one will even notice. Still, there's a hint of hesitation in Hansen's voice. That's when Raymond pulls out his signature victim card, pretending to pout and offering to return the broom like a sad little kid. Hansen flat out refuses such an offer. It makes sense, since cleaning the almshouse is the worst kind of hassle, and skipping it would genuinely make anyone's day. Raymond means it sincerely. He keeps his whole leveling up plan to himself. There's no need for Hansen to know everything. A little while later, Ray gets to bandage a patient and earns some experience points. Every time he helps a patient, his experience goes up. These small efforts are clearly working in his favor. And now 3 days have already passed. Raymond finally hits level 4 and decides to invest his extra points into attunement to sharpen his surgery skills. He keeps helping patients day after day, imagining the path that will soon lead him to becoming the greatest healer of all time. From there, it would be a rags to riches story with a 5-story marble house and endless steak feasts, plus the finest wine to sip before bed. Even though he was the son of the greatest man in the land, he had suffered more than the lowest servant. He was trapped in misery inside a place meant for royalty. He used to be full of envy toward everyone around him. Suddenly, someone catches him off guard, saying he can leave if he wants, and Dr. Ray is thrown off for a second. But he quickly assures the patient that the poultice is on, and they'll feel better soon enough. This elderly woman finds Raymond super handsome and kind, at least compared to the other healers she's seen in the infirmaries. Raymond smiles and says an aging body doesn't need an aging heart from an unkind healer. It reminds him of when his own mother suffered from back pain, making him familiar with this kind of ache from an early age. The old woman then shares how, even though Lance may be gifted, his nasty attitude never right with her. But today, thanks to the Shadow Prince, she's leaving with a warm heart and a big smile. After this, Raymond's blue screen unlocks Friendly Healer thanks to his kindness, earning him 5 skill points and a reputation boost. He knows skill points have something to do with his performance, so after wishing the old woman a good day, he gets back to his chores. With no other choice, he's stuck cleaning again, and the awful smell around the place definitely needs some serious scrubbing. He remembers that Lepentina never really cared much about cleanliness. Even Hansen couldn't get the job done right. Raymond smacks his head, knowing a contaminated facility is terrible for a patient's health. Cleanliness is a pillar of medical science after all, so he motivates himself by picturing his future wealth as a successful doctor. He scrubs like his life depends on it. He's practically making the place brand new, and even swears he'll hire a personal cleaner once he makes it big. Though his joints are aching now, he wonders if boosting his strength stat would help. Just then, a flurry of blue windows pop up, unlocking Squeaky Clean and earning him 20 more skill points, some bonus points, and taking him to level 5. With a total of 40 skill points now, Raymond can finally buy new skills, and even gain abilities to clean more efficiently. From general to class skills, Ray gets a special bonus on his first purchase, and can even grab a unique grade skill for 40 points. He has 3 options to choose from, including Muscles of Steel, Surgeon's Finesse, and Wise Eyes, all of which are rare and not easily earned. It's a tough call, but before he can make a decision, Hansen rushes in with a patient in critical condition, vomiting blood with hematemesis. One glance and Dr. Ray knows this calls for a grade A healer. Sure, healing can help with blood clotting, but in this case, it's highly unlikely to work. Belland Infirmary only has 1 grade A healer, Director Buck. He's currently busy treating a noble. The patient is on the verge of death, unless someone steps in to perform surgery. Raymond searches his knowledge and finds a procedure that might work, but it's normally only available to high-level residents. Hansen spreads the word ward in a panic. Lance shows up to examine the patient. He coldly declares the man as good as dead and sees no point in trying. Raymond storms in, challenging that attitude and asking how they can give up without even trying. He urges Lance to act since he's a grade B healer, and maybe there's still a chance. But Lance is tired of Ray. He wonders where Ray gets the nerve, considering he's been a failure for 5 years. Lance tells him that if he's so smart, he should save the patient himself. Raymond knows it's a losing bet, but at this point the patient will die their way. If the man dies because of him, he'll be blamed and thrown out for sure. Just then, a blue window pops up, unlocking passion of the healer with the difficulty set too high, allowing Raymond to treat a patient beyond his skill level using sheer willpower. He even gets a double level up with 30 skill points. A new medical science quest begins, and Dr. Ray knows that if he messes this up, failure awaits. When the patient begs him to save his life, Raymond realizes that if he doesn't act now, that man is as good as dead. Hametamisa's patient is practically begging Raymond to save him, and Bro knows that if he does nothing, the man will die, and with him, any hope our boy has of staying in the Elm house. But he also knows this case is way beyond his skill level, and if he tries and fails, the result might still be the same. Honestly, it would be smarter to stick with easier cases for the next 2 weeks. Still, his conscience won't let him walk away from the patient's desperate coughing and pleas for help. He silently prays for strength, and out of nowhere, Heart of Steel activates. With a clear mind, the Shadow Prince makes a vow to practice medicine for the sake of humanity. He won't just stand by while fear and doubt take a man's life. And he rushes over to Lance and asks for a chance to treat the patient. Lance calls him a mad brat but steps aside, curious to see if Raymond's luck will pull through again. The others leave too, giving Raymond full control of the case. As he gets ready, doubt starts creeping in, since surgery isn't something one person can do alone. But right then, Hansen shows up and quietly asks if Raymond needs help. He admits he felt awful just thinking about letting someone die without even trying. Raymond gratefully accepts, though Hansen is still nervous, wondering how 2 below average nobodies are supposed to pull this off. The Shadow Prince makes it clear they aren't using healing magic. Time's running out, so they'll explain things later. From that point on, he tells Hansen to follow his lead. Without wasting a second, Hansen boils clean water and sterilizes a knife in the fire, then grabs a clean cloth for the patient. Even so, Hansen keeps asking questions out of curiosity, but Ray believes in showing results first. Hansen notices the patient starting to lose consciousness, but this newbie resident had already taken care of that with a bit of hallucinogen. Raymond can't believe he actually prepared some catgut just in time, since the mages in the tower use it all the time. Catgut is a material made from animal intestines used to stitch wounds, and it naturally dissolves inside the body. First things first, Raymond sanitizes the operation site. Hansen, clearly curious, asks what he's doing, and Dr. Ray casually says he's about to perform surgery. The moment he makes the first cut into the patient's stomach, Hansen nearly screams from the shock, calling it blasphemy. Raymond knows how this abdominal operation works, but seeing the fat and muscle tissue up close makes it hit differently. He feels dizzy and more than a little grossed out. Just then, Heart of Steel kicks in, and Dr. Ray gives himself a little pep talk about becoming the best healer in the land. The thought of people admiring him, along with dreams of future wealth and recognition, pushes him to finish the midline incision. Hansen is still totally freaked out and even considers stopping him. Then he sees Ray pouring everything he has into this, and remembers just how weak he used to be. Then they spot the yellow fluid leaking from the duodenum, and sure enough, it's a perforated ulcer. Raymond clearly remembers the procedure. He needs to tie off the blood vessels feeding the area and plug the hole. All of a sudden, Healer Ray tells Hansen to lift the left organ, and the dude nearly loses it just hearing that. Even though Raymond knows this procedure inside and out, his hand refuses to make the first incision and actually get things started. The surgery looks like it's about to crash and burn, but Ray quickly shifts into his breathing routine to calm himself down. He also realizes he still hasn't bought the surgery finesse skill yet, even though strength and intelligence are both crucial right now. That's when the blue window appears, asking if he wants to buy the surgery skill, and he instantly hits apply. His attunement points also increase, bringing them to 16. The moment the skill activates, everything shifts. As he works on the patient, Raymond's technique becomes noticeably sharper and more assured. His hand stays steady now, even if his overall abilities haven't miraculously improved. Without the shaking getting in the way anymore, he asked for the cord to tie off the blood vessel and seal the hole in the duodenum. While lifting the omentum attached to the stomach, Raymond plugs the perforation with a gram patch and cuts the vagus nerve to help regulate stomach acid secretion. Then comes the messy part. He rinses the gastric fluid, contaminating the peritoneum with sterile water. Gets ready to close the incision. That's how he completes his very first laparotomy. To his surprise, it unlocks the achievement Father of Surgery, etching his name into history as a pioneer for future healers. He earns 10 skill points plus a level up bonus for successfully treating a case far above his level. On top of that, he becomes a passionate healer, gaining another 30 skill points with extra leveling bonuses. Without warning, Raymond's eyes fill with tears of joy. This totally freaks Hansen out. Dr. Ray, in a shaky but warm voice, whispers that he actually did it. Word spreads quickly, and Lance is absolutely stunned when he hears Raymond has healed the patient. The informant has no idea how it happened, but somehow the patient is recovering just fine, and storms off to see it for himself, convinced there's no way a Grey F could have pulled this off. He bursts through the door only to find the healer and the patient casually chatting like old friends, and Lance has absolutely no idea what kind of miracle he just walked in on. The patient says he owes Raymond big time for saving his life, but Ray tells him to take it easy since they're not out of danger yet. Suddenly, Master Lance bursts in, yelling and demanding to know if the director healed the patient. A sudden entrance catches Raymond off guard. Lance keeps shouting, demanding to know who healed the man, insisting there's no way it could have been Raymond. Hesitantly, the Shadow Prince says he did it himself. Lance's fury goes through the roof, thinking Raymond is lying through his teeth. Then Raymond drops the real bombshell. He didn't even use healing magic. That leaves Lance completely stunned, knowing he needs a solid explanation. The Shadow Prince says he used an ancient method called medical science to treat the patient. And just like that, he spins a story about how he once tripped and fell off a cliff up north, where he stumbled upon a treasure trove of knowledge about this forgotten practice. Of course, Master Lance doesn't believe a word of it, and unleashes his full rage until the patient, fed up, tells him to stop shouting. And the man lifts his shirt and shows the surgical incision as proof, leaving Lance completely speechless. On top of that, the patient suddenly recognizes face, realizing he's the one who had been ready to let him die without even trying to help. Now here he is, badmouthing the only person who actually saved his life. Raymond quickly grabs hold of him, warning him not to move with those fresh stitches. But the patient completely loses it and snatches the nearest pot to hurl it at Lance. Just his luck, Master Lance ends up getting smacked with a pot filled with urine, and he freezes in place, trembling in absolute disgust. The patient roars in anger, warning that he's got a bucket of feces ready to throw if Lance doesn't get out right now. Lance bolts out of the room, and the patient shakes his head in disbelief, wondering how someone like that could call himself a healer. He apologizes for making such a mess, which only adds to the Shadow Prince's worries, but to him it's all worth it. Raymond thanks the patient for standing up for him. After that, rumors spread like wildfire. People say Raymond just got lucky stopping the bleeding and has no clue what this so-called medical science even is. Hearing all that, the novice healer isn't surprised at all. He expected this outcome since his success didn't change his reputation in Lepentina one bit. While he's busy scrubbing the floor in the almshouse, Hansen watches him quietly from the side. Then, out of nowhere, Hansen calls out to the Shadow Prince and says he's had a change of heart. He snatches the broomstick and takes over the cleaning, which completely throws Raymond off. He can't help but notice that Hansen's behavior has shifted. Out of nowhere, Master Lance lurks from the shadows and creeps up on him. Healer Ray feels a sudden chill, like someone's watching him. When he turns around, he sees Lance's face full of disgust. Somehow his attitude toward Raymond has shifted since that day. Those nasty looks have gone from rude to downright frightening. Even though this kind of behavior used to bother him a lot, Raymond now completely ignores it and feels nothing. Meanwhile, Lance is fuming like a pressure cooker ready to blow, but none of that shakes Raymond's peace of mind. He's off in his own little world, dreaming about his future as the greatest healer in the land. In his daydreams, he's bathing in gold coins and imagining a life where all the nobles grovel at his feet. But just as he's getting lost in the fantasy, a strange chill creeps up his spine. His instincts sense something eerie, and sure enough, it's Master Lance sneaking up beside his ear. Raymond turns to him with his best nervous smile, already feeling that something is wrong. With a sly grin, Lance drops the bomb. Dr. Ray is officially scheduled to leave for the upcoming Royal Name Day celebration. That's the last thing Raymond expected. The mere thought sends a cold shiver through him. Lance practically shouts it in his ear, and Dr. Ray can barely believe what he's hearing. It's clear now that Lance made this bold move to shut down his odd little practice by signing him up for the royal event, likely hoping Raymond will fail spectacularly in front of the whole kingdom. And here Lance is, acting like he's doing him a favor. The Name Day celebration is actually an annual banquet at the royal palace honoring the first king's birthday, with all the nobles in attendance. Because of the high-profile crowd, the palace healers are often short-staffed, so extra help is called in. Each infirmary sends one healer to take part. Being chosen means your skills have been officially recognized, which is a huge honor for any healer, yet something feels off to the Shadow Prince. Even as Lance smugly boasts about how only the best apprentice gets such a prestigious chance. While Lance goes on about how the Shadow Prince saved a patient with internal bleeding, calling it proof of his worth, Raymond sulks in the shadows. Through gritted teeth, he mutters, "Monster," under his breath. Realizing this is just another scheme to humiliate him, the palace feels like nothing but a nightmare. The memories of his last visit come flooding back, how some guys kicked him in the gut like he was a stray dog. They told him to die just for being born, as if his very existence brought them misery. Compared to that hellhole, the infirmary has been heaven. All the palace ever gave him were beatings, crashes, and insults. He was always mocked and blamed for bringing shame to their father's name. He used to call him the Shadow Prince, a nickname that still stings. Even his father turned his back on him, because in the chivalrous kingdom of Houston, a bastard child like him was never supposed to exist, and the king's one mistake became Raymond's curse. It branded him as a filthy disgrace that tainted the royal bloodline. Now Lance has the nerve to send him back to that place for the festival. Raymond breaks the silence by asking if it really has to be him, saying he's totally fine with letting someone else take the lead. Master Lance pressures him, asking why he'd pass up such a golden opportunity, then reminds Raymond that he still holds the authority to decide when his apprenticeship ends. That hits hard, making Raymond reconsider everything all over again. He feels like punching this smug jerk, his hand trembling with frustration. Out of nowhere, a window pops up announcing Raymond's next quest. Savior of the banquet, his mission is to make it through the entire banquet without a single casualty. The quest is graded half scalpel with high difficulty, and the condition is simple: attend the banquet to the end, and make sure no one dies. If he pulls it off, he'll earn triple experience for leveling up, gain 30 skill points, boost his reputation, and even win someone's favor. This whole thing unsettles the doctor, making him wonder why the reward is so generous, even 3 times greater than the last quest, and the high difficulty bothers him too. He starts thinking it might be a sign that something serious is about to happen in a banquet. That thought only adds to his anxiety, but despite his nerves, he jumps at the chance to go. Still, he's not going for free. In exchange, he demands a healing certification exam sometime after the festival. Honestly, the only reason Raymond signed up to work at this infirmary was for that exam, and there's no way he would have agreed to this hellish palace mission without something in return. Lance visibly flinches at the thought of letting a grade F- rookie take the certification exam. Raymond fires back, reminding Lance that he was the one who chose him as worthy enough to attend the royal event. That certainly hits a nerve. Then Lance thinks of his next comeback and throws out a challenge. Raymond will only get his way if he performs flawlessly at the banquet. Just like that, Raymond feels like he's hit the jackpot, finally getting closer to his goal. He's on cloud 9, thrilled at the chance to prove himself worthy of taking the exam. As soon as he gets that certification, he'll be out of here faster than lightning, and best of all, he won't have to see Lance's disgusting face ever again. Just the thought of it fuels him even more. Afterwards, Raymond finally heads off to the castle he absolutely hates to his core. It's been 5 years since he left that place, and he hasn't looked back once. Just one glance brings up all the traumatic memories that make him want to tear his hair out. He starts to panic, seriously wondering if it's too late to just turn around and run. Still, Raymond is pretty sure Lance can't fire him after he managed to treat that patient with hematemesis. It's almost guaranteed Master Lance will roast him anyway, but compared to what he's already endured, that would be child's play. To make things worse, Raymond keeps thinking his skills are still terrible, and he's not even confident he can actually help anyone at the palace. The place will be crawling with top-tier healers from all over the kingdom, making him feel like he won't even be needed. Then a thought clicks. If there's someone no one else can treat, that person might die. That idea hits hard, and before he realizes it, his feet are already moving, carrying him farther toward the palace. Even though everyone there once treated him like first-class trash, something shifts inside him. Healer Ray finally stops running from it all and tells himself he's done nothing wrong, so there's no reason to keep running now. Apparently, being born a bastard wasn't his choice to begin with. His father, who happens to be the king, is the one to blame for this whole existential mess, and Dr. Ray is the biggest victim of it. In the past, he would have just kept running from everything, but now his morals won't let him risk letting a patient die when they might need him most. He reminds himself he's here to treat people, not to serve the palace or anyone in it. Suddenly, a window pops up, informing him that his heart of steel has temporarily risen to grade A, triggered by him facing his fears for the sake of patients. He actually feels something warm in his chest, calming his jittery nerves. He can sense the effect of an A-grade skill kicking in as his pulse starts to settle. With a clearer head, his thoughts shift and he realizes he could even make a fortune saving a noble's life. Just the kind of motivation he needed to get hyped up. On top of that, Raymond decides to buy a new skill to make things easier for himself. He opens the skill marker and picks the bonus skill option, only to be stunned when he discovers that skill points can actually be used to learn magic. His heart pounds with excitement at the thought that one day, he might even surpass real mages, especially given how strange and unique his abilities are. Aside from that, he looks through the other skill choices. Under common skills, he spots friendly doctor, efficient records, and facing the boars. He guesses that his low level might be hiding some of the more special ones for now, but thinking about the upcoming royal event being crowded with rude guests makes him choose the skill that fits the situation best. After purchasing Facing the Boars, Raymond receives 30 skill points. The skill lets him react quickly and smoothly when dealing with ill-mannered people, which sounds perfect for what lies ahead. With everything ready, the novice healer is prepared to get going. Back at the Houston Kingdom, guests are busy showering the king with praise. They call him the greatest for ruling so smoothly and effectively, saying that without him, the entire kingdom might have collapsed. The king is known as the veteran knight, a brilliant war commander, a wise administrator who cares deeply for his people, and a monarch who commands great respect from the nobles. Because of all that, no one ever dared to criticize him, so instead they placed all the blame on Raymond just to protect the king's flawless image. For years, Raymond was tortured and mocked, held responsible for staining the perfect legacy of the king's reign. That's why 5 years ago, the so-called Shadow Prince left the palace on his own. Everyone in the kingdom was glad to see him go, treating him like trash that had finally taken itself out. No one ever wanted someone like Raymond to walk freely among them. The wealthy can't help but gossip about the bastard prince, who is apparently a complete failure at healing and still stuck as an apprentice. Dr. Ray, standing right there among them, hears every word. Then someone in the crowd suddenly recognizes the Shadow Prince, and they start mocking him immediately. This time, thanks to his heart of steel at level A, Raymond couldn't care less. In fact, he actually feels unusually handsome today. While admiring his polished looks, he thinks about how badly he wants to make this upgrade to his heart of steel permanent. Out of nowhere, his eyes catch Princess Sophia giving him a look, like he's some kind of disgusting bug, just as he remembers. He brushes it off as typical teenage behavior, figuring she either never had a reason to mess with him before, or maybe just wasn't strong enough to do it. As it turns out, Sophia inherited poor health just like the late queen, and she still doesn't seem to be doing any better. Just then, a chill runs down Raymond's spine when someone calls him their rotten little Raymond. It's Settle, the fourth prince, clearly surprised to find Raymond among them. Raymond's body trembles in his presence as painful memories come flooding back. Memories of how Settle used to treat him like garbage and beat him senseless. Some of those bruises still haunt him even now. The whole situation feels like a mouse cornered by a snake. Settle asks why he's so quiet, wondering if Raymond has finally grown the nerve to ignore the royal family. Then he grabs Raymond by the chin and pulls him close, making sure everyone is watching. Raymond's body flinches as a flashback to his horrific memories hits him hard, but before it gets any worse, he forcefully activates Heart of Steel. And just like that, he feels completely at peace, as if nothing matters anymore. The system detects Settle's attitude as extremely boorish, which instantly triggers Facing the Boars. Without missing a beat, Raymond bows respectfully to Settle, completely catching him off guard. Settle is baffled by the sudden display of manners, especially since Raymond has never even spoken to him before. What really throws him off is how calm Raymond is now, considering he used to shake like a leaf just being near him. Redhead stands there confused, just as he's about to throw his drink in frustration. Ray, looking all innocent like a cute bunny, asks if Settle came over because he's feeling any aches or pains. Settle freezes on the spot, not knowing what that's supposed to mean. Raymond calmly explains that Settle just stepped into the healer's zone, so he figured the prince might need some health care or something. Even though Settle insists he's fine, deep down he knows something feels off with Ray. Still keeping it polite, healer Ray tells him he's welcome to head back to the main hall and enjoy the rest of the banquet. That only makes Settle more irritated, especially as Raymond casually turns to the man next to them who had just sat down after a sudden wave of dizziness. With a gentle touch, Raymond supports the old man and assures him he will treat whatever illness is stopping him from enjoying the royal banquet. Meanwhile, Settle is still standing there like a statue. Raymond glances back to check on him, which makes Settle even more furious, realizing this little rat is trying to push him away. So Settle decides to play along with Ray's rules and fakes an illness. Raymond asks him to describe his condition so he can take a look. Settle fakes some vague symptoms like being tired and having no energy, figuring the healer will have a hard time proving it's not real. This fuels Settle's intense desire to destroy him for his weak excuse. Dr. Ray, with a sigh, calmly diagnoses him with excessive drinking. Even seeing his awful brother doesn't cause the slightest change in his aura. He directly attacks Settle's daily alcohol abuse, which disturbs bodily functions, and in turn makes him lethargic. He suggests that Raymond cut back on the drinking and hopes he takes better care of himself. That completely stuns Settle, who has no idea how to challenge his reasoning. Raymond wishes him a pleasant evening and lets him leave. Settle can't figure out what's going on with this new version of the jerk. Meanwhile, the system awards him the 5 skill points. Even Raymond feels proud of himself for handling that boar while staying calm, all thanks to that skill. Looking back, he can't believe he used to be afraid of a guy who could barely string a sentence together, and now has a mind like scrambled eggs. As he leaves, Raymond flips him off behind his back. Later on, out of nowhere, Princess Sophia approaches the Shadow Prince and comments on how much he has changed compared to before. She even admits that she once thought he was a complete waste of space. Hearing this, Raymond thinks back to their earlier meetings and wonders if her opinion of him has really shifted. Smiling warmly, he pays her a compliment, saying she hasn't changed at all. She raises an eyebrow and asks if he means her bad temper, but Raymond quickly clarifies he meant she's still as beautiful as he recalls. Then Sophia mentions feeling a little off and says she's going to take a short rest. When he asks what's wrong, she explains that her speech is coming up soon, so she doesn't have much time to relax. Raymond urges her to rest anyway, noting how pale she looks, but she brushes him off, saying he's just an apprentice who likely wouldn't know how to help her. As she walks away, Raymond realizes her irritable mood isn't really directed at him. Then the time for the speech arrives, and Sophia steps forward to greet the crowd gathered for this year's name day celebration. Everything seems fine, until Raymond notices something strange about her. She starts panting heavily, and suddenly her heart begins racing in her chest. Without warning, she stumbles and collapses. This causes panic among the audience. A group of healers immediately rushes over, and that's when it hits Raymond that Princess Sophia is actually part of his quest. Quickly, the royals called for healers to attend to her. One of them stepped forward and cast healing magic, but it didn't work at all. That sent a wave of worry through Raymond, especially since even a top-grade healer couldn't make any difference. Doubt crept into his heart, making him question whether he was even qualified to intervene. The pressure was intense, and the thought of failing and facing the consequences made his legs weak. For a moment, he seriously considered pretending he hadn't noticed anything, especially since he and Sophia never really got along from the beginning. When he's just beginning to unlock his new abilities and chase his dreams, the thought of his life ending now feels extremely unfair. He tightens his lips, and Sophia's recent words about how he has changed echo in his mind. It wasn't a perfect apology, but Raymond's heart simply won't let him give up after that. Raymond grits his teeth. He's not letting Sophia die before she gives him a proper apology. After that, she can do whatever she wants. Without wasting another second, Dr. Ray steps forward and announces that he'll handle it, making everyone turn their heads. Palace healers tell the so-called apprentice to back off, saying this is way beyond his ability, but that doesn't stop Raymond. He charges ahead at full speed to reach Sophia. Right then, his heart of steel levels up even higher for deciding to treat an emergency patient. Even though a bunch of healers try to stop him, Raymond pushes through and reaches Sophia. She glances up weakly, saying she'll definitely die if he doesn't help her. Raymond immediately checks her corroded pulse and realizes she's in cardiac arrest. The only option left is to restart her heart so blood can flow again. Quickly, he clasps his hands together and places them on her chest. Pumping hard to restart her heart, the crowd instantly erupts in anger at the sight of someone touching a princess like that. Raymond shouts that it's for her own good. Just as the healers move in to push him away, the king steps into the scene and his presence silences everyone. That's when the king catches sight of Raymond pumping Sophia's chest and urgently asks the healers if their methods can save her, and none of them answer. He explodes in anger and orders the useless losers to let Raymond do whatever he needs to do. Meanwhile, the young healer is panicking, confused as to why her heart still won't respond. Sweat drips down his forehead as he frantically searches for a solution, knowing time is running out. He continues performing chest compressions without stopping, but a wave of anxiety suddenly overwhelms him, especially when the bystanders begin whispering, treating him like a criminal. With wide eyes and clenched teeth, Raymond struggles to breathe while continuing chest compressions, knowing he's in serious trouble, and panic briefly takes over. Still, he forces himself to stay calm. He remembers that when CPR isn't working, the next step is an electric shock, but finding a defibrillator in La Pentina is nearly out of the question. Left with no other option, quickly opens his status window, checks the skill market, and spends 80 skill points to buy the extra skill called Electricus Magic. Without wasting a moment, he places one hand under Sophia's right collarbone and the other near her left armpit, channeling the electricity directly into her body. Just then, a man with a broom shoves him aside, cutting off the magical current. The man looks ready to tear Raymond apart. He shouts that Raymond is attacking the princess while she's already on the verge of death. Dr. Ray, trembling like a leaf, tries to explain that he's not hurting her, using magic to save her. At that moment, the king orders the healers to examine the princess. One of them immediately checks her pulse, announces that her heart is beating again. A wave of disbelief sweeps over everyone since Raymond didn't seem to use any healing magic at all. Raymond lets out a sigh of relief. Small comfort knowing his death might not be so brutal after all. However, the king's curiosity has piqued, and he urgently demands to know what Raymond did. This definitely catches him off guard. The king waits for a believable explanation for Raymond's methods, so Raymond bows respectfully, explaining that Sophia's critical condition required a different approach. The king remains silent, trying to make sense of everything. Right then, the king walks past him, declaring the banquet over. Suddenly, the king turns to the Shadow Prince, ordering him to stay until summoned. This only adds to his worry, with no idea what the king wants, especially since they haven't spoken in 5 years. Going back in time, Raymond first met his father shortly after his mother passed away. He was starving and alone in a rundown house when the door creaked open. The king's healer examined Raymond's mother and declared her dead. Deep down, the king knew the boy wouldn't survive without the best medical care either. Without hesitation, he picked Raymond up in his arms and rushed straight to the palace, giving the healers a firm order to save him no matter what. News of this spread quickly among the people. The king made sure everyone knew the boy's life was essential, and that was the last time Raymond heard his father's comforting voice, as he was saved. Yet they never spoke a single word to each other, since as an impure child, his very existence was seen as wrong. Even now, the memory of the physical and emotional pain still hurts. He often wishes his father had simply left him to die. Phantom pain from his childhood arm injury, the feeling of blood flowing, remains vivid even to this day. Out of nowhere, the status window suddenly appears, flashing a notification that the quest savior of the banquet is complete, rewarding him with 30 skill points. Raymond had completely forgotten about the quest reward in all the chaos. On top of that, he levels up 4 times, earning a total of 60 skill points, and he also gets a solid reputation boost plus a new achievement for saving a VIP. The young man is overjoyed, convinced that everything he went through was absolutely worth it. While hopping around in pure excitement, he casually calls the king Your Majesty instead of father, making it clear he doesn't care about him at all. With a smug grin, Raymond beams with pride, knowing he just saved Princess Sophia from the brink of death, and decides he's going to ask for the biggest reward possible. Afterwards, the young healer is called before the king and offers his respectful greetings as a humble servant. The king asks if Raymond used a different method of treatment, so Raymond comes clean, revealing his technique called medical sciences, an incredible ancient method he discovered in old ruins, and it's a good thing he had his made-up stories ready, in case anyone got curious. Plus, Lepentina is full of ancient runes, so explorers often stumble upon all kinds of mysterious knowledge. Considering it once possessed technology far more advanced than anything we have today, most of which remains an unsolvable mystery, Raymond's made-up explanations end up sounding surprisingly believable. Finding knowledge lost to time in Lepentina is pretty easy to accept, especially given its long history and the many ancient runes scattered throughout. The king takes that into account, acknowledging that medical science just saved Princess Sophia's life, and because of that, Raymond deserves a reward. Raymond's eyes light up like stars, practically drooling at the thought of a reward big enough to turn his whole life upside down. Then the king leans in and asks what he wants, promising a reward so huge he'll never have to work again. Raymond stands there, lost in thought. He weighs the tempting idea of asking for money. After all, as a top-tier healer, he could be swimming in riches. But deep down, he knows there's something far more valuable, something only a king can grant. So, with a confident smile, he turns on his healer's charm and speaks from the heart. He says he wants nothing more than to care for his patients, and that he doesn't need gold or silver. This stuns the crowd into silence. Gasps ripple through the room as everyone praises his selflessness, amazed that someone like him would turn down wealth for the sake of others. Even the royal healer can't believe such words came from a so-called bastard. Deep inside, Raymond knows nothing beats money, but playing the noble healer earns him something even greater. With all eyes on him, he finally asks for the king's official endorsement, the royal seal of approval, so he can dedicate himself fully to helping others. The room goes quiet, stunned by the sincerity of his request. What the king gathers from Raymond's dramatic plea is that the young healer wants his treatment methods officially recognized. Dr. Ray, deep down, is worried that the healer community might come after him for using unorthodox methods. He could easily label everything he did as dark magic and pressure the Tower of Healing to ban such practices entirely. To avoid that nightmare, the king's approval is the only shield he's got. Realizing the truth behind Ray's concern, and the fact that this same approach saved his daughter's life, the king has no choice but to declare medical science an official method of treatment. With that, Raymond finally achieves one of his goals. But he's not done yet. Looking back at the king, he politely mentions that there's just one more thing he needs. Yet again, Raymond plainly explains that he has no desire to claim gold or silver from the king. However, as a healer, he hopes to enjoy at least a little glory. He takes a deep breath and states that the king must grant his permission for him to receive the Bringer Award. The Bringer Award is something the royal family gives only for the most outstanding and meaningful deeds. Crowd in the back starts whispering among themselves, saying that the Bringer Award only comes with honor and nothing more. They watch in disbelief as this man asks only for prestige, turning down wealth after saving the princess. No one expected something like this from a bastard, but the truth is clear: Raymond is one amazing healer. Just then, a window pops up, showing that people are deeply moved by his words and his reputation takes a solid boost. Still, Raymond laughs to himself, knowing they've got it all wrong. What they don't know is that the Bringer Award can lead to an honorary knighthood, which, while it comes with no real privileges, is the first step toward nobility. He's practically dying to get it, calling it the best reward ever. When the king asks if there's anything else he wants, Raymond humbly replies that as a healer, it would be improper to ask for anything more. This sent Raymond's reputation through the roof, and the king was finally ready to grant him the Bringer Award. After the ceremony, Raymond walked out while the king, his royal healer, silently watched him leave. The healer couldn't help but remember the day he first saw little Ray, starving and barely clinging to life. Compared to that fragile boy, Raymond now looked like a completely different person, a man with conviction and purpose. Back then, he had asked the king what he planned to do, as he lifted the child into his arms. The king had said he was heading to the palace, so the boy could be treated by a top-grade healer, but the royal healer had warned him that word would spread fast, and people would start saying Raymond was his bastard child. The woman had left as soon as she learned who the king was and never sent a single letter to the palace until the day she died. The healer had argued to let the boy die instead of risking disgrace to the throne and damage to the king's dignity. The king had stayed firm in his decision and brought Raymond to the palace anyway. However, Garmin knew the only way to protect his reputation while possibly saving the bastard was by showing no emotion toward the boy, no matter what happened. King's judgment worked out perfectly, and no one criticized him for it, mainly because they had a better target to focus on, like Raymond. The healer wished Raymond had just been some countryside noble's bastard, so things wouldn't have gotten this complicated. Still, he silently thanked the heavens for the blessing of medical science that gave him the chance to turn his life around. He figures that his chosen method might at least deliver results equal to a mid-grade healer, which would be enough for him to make a decent living. For a bastard like Ray, even that is a big win. The king stays silent, offering no comments. Meanwhile, Raymond returns to the Belland Infirmary, where everyone welcomes him warmly, stunned to hear he received the Bringer Award. People around here aren't even using his name anymore. They're calling him Raymond instead. Some are clearly envious and act a little distant, especially given their long history of mistreating him. Nobody, not even Lance, ever imagined Raymond could pull something like this off and make it big. Even Lance is walking on eggshells around him these days. Just then, Raymond demands to know if Lance still has a problem with giving the certification exam. As soon as Lance lays eyes on Ray, he flinches and awkwardly calls him sir for no real reason. Dr. Ray, of course, notices right away and keeps pushing Lance to say his name over and over. He teases him the whole time, acting like it's all just fun and games. Lance finally snaps and says it out loud, this time with clear disgust in his voice. Raymond just grins and asks if that's how royal etiquette works these days. Trembling like a leaf, Lance immediately apologizes. Raymond thanks him for using the right tone and then forces Master Lance to bow before him respectfully. Raymond feels like he's on top of the world. He thinks it's finally time to teach them a lesson for how they treated him all along. But even with his new noble status, he knows he doesn't truly hold power or privileges yet, and rushing into revenge could backfire. So instead, Raymond politely asks the healer if he can take care of this patient. He plans to quietly take all their patients and make the most out of this moment. Everyone expected Raymond to turn into an arrogant fool after winning the Bringer Award, but instead he became even kinder and worked harder than before. Among the crowd, Hansen watches him with warmth, seeing just how much he has grown. Meanwhile, Raymond's experience points keep climbing, and his friendly approach with patients is quickly boosting his reputation. He's now a level 15 novice resident with 25 out of 50 experience points. Seeing that, he can't believe he only needs to reach level 40 to upgrade his occupation. Just then, a cart comes crashing through the doors. It carries an emergency patient with a stab wound to the abdomen. A wave of anxiety rushes through Raymond's mind. He figures a grade B healer could handle this, though it might take some time. He assumes Lance will be busy with it for days. But instead, Raymond watches in disbelief as Lance casually glances at the patient like he has no responsibilities left. He acts like it's no big deal, even though this is far from an easy case. A man knocks on the door with a bleeding stab wound in his abdomen. He mutters to himself, wondering who snitched on him. A few days earlier at Count August's manor, word had already spread that the Shadow Prince had caused quite a stir at the banquet, so much so that he earned the prestigious Bringer Award. The Count thinks that while the boy may have remarkable abilities, the title of prince is wasted on him, At the same time, he brings up the three princes of the Kingdom of Houston, where the fight for the throne is already brutal among the current contenders. His servant asks if House August isn't backing the third prince. The second prince is named Karen, and the third is Remerton. Of all three, the Count believes Karen is the strongest candidate, which is exactly why he gave such an important mission to Klein. He orders Klein to deliver this intelligence to the third prince right away. Klein is also told to wear a disguise to throw off spies sent by the second prince, then head straight to the Rendezvous point unseen. As it turns out, the second prince had sent an assassin to finish the job by stabbing Klein. Somehow Klein managed to escape, though he lost a lot of blood in the process. Luckily for him, Belland Infirmary was nearby, and he believed that Greta healer Director Buck could save him. Staggering from blood loss, Klein made his way there. He was convinced that his fate wasn't to just bleed out and die. When he arrived, Master Lance didn't seem eager to help. He questioned why a beggar was even allowed inside, saying they didn't treat the penniless, especially not when the wound would take him days to heal. Without a second thought, Lance ordered his lackeys to drag Klein off to the White Infirmary, where poor peasants were usually treated. Klein tried to speak up about his identity and residence, but his lungs failed him. All he could do was cough up blood. Just as Lance was about to make a snide comment, Raymond cut in, pointing out that the White Infirmary had no healers capable of treating such an injury. If they dumped him there, he'd be as good as dead. Lance, grinning like a devil, turned to Sir the Great Healer and asked if he would do the honors instead. After all, Raymond was the celebrated savior of Princess Sophia, so surely something like this would be a piece of cake for him. The crowd starts whispering, saying how the Shadow Prince has been stealing their patients lately. So why can't he just take this one too? Some even snicker that medical science probably only works on easy cases anyway. Raymond feels a rush of anxiety. He knows a stab wound isn't something a novice resident like him should handle. He's not ready for something this serious. Lance takes the chance to mock him, telling him to go ahead and prove why he's known as the friendly healer, either by taking the patient to the White Infirmary or by throwing him out. Raymond fires back, asking if Lance has no shame, especially as a master healer more than qualified to treat this man. But Lance doesn't budge. He makes it clear he won't waste his skills for free on a beggar who can't pay. That comment lights a fire in Ray, his anger bubbling as the tension in the room rises. Come to think of it, Ray's goal is pretty clear. He wants to be the land's greatest healer and live a life full of riches. That mindset leans toward the materialistic side, and stepping up here would honestly look like a foolish move. A smart choice would be to just stay out of it, but Raymond holds tightly to his morals. Believing no real healer should ever walk away from someone who's dying, he decides to take responsibility and handle this patient himself. That flicker of courage stirs his iron will. Lance, of course, keeps running his mouth, warning that if Raymond messes up, all the praise he got for saving the princess will be chalked up to pure luck. Worse still, Lance spins a dramatic tale where Raymond is accused of using dark magic and found guilty of deceiving the royal family. He warns that the consequences could shape Raymond's entire future, then walks away, leaving him alone with the client. As emotions churn inside Raymond, Hansen steps up and gently asks if he needs any help, reminding him it's better not to work alone like last time. Just as Hansen starts to look uncertain, Raymond takes his hand and thanks him, appreciating how he had his back before. Hansen's words that he's already done this once give Raymond the boost he needs, making him feel like it might be a walk in the park. Without wasting a moment, he asks for sterile boiled water, a knife, and a needle heated in flames, ensuring the surgical area is cleaned right away. After that, both Lance and Hansen put on their masks. Raymond quickly realizes a blood transfusion is needed, but since Lepentina lacks the proper equipment, he decides to make do by keeping the patient's vitals stable with a steady saline drip. He activates Surgeon's Finesse, a skill that boosts his attunement, making his hands sharper and more precise for surgery. With that, he makes the incision, confident that his attunement has doubled since last time, making everything feel smoother. As blood starts to pour out, Hansen catches a glimpse and flinches. He's never seen so much blushing at once. He nervously asks if this amount of blood loss isn't dangerous. While Raymond struggles to locate the source of the wound through the thick, dark pool of blood, Hansen looks down in shock, as if he's never witnessed anything so intense. And Dr. Ray's hands begin to tremble with fear. Hansen calls out, clearly wanting to help, and that small gesture pulls Raymond back into focus. He nods and tells Hansen to wipe the area clean with a sterile cloth. Once the blood is cleared, Raymond finally spots the problem. The knife has punctured the mesentery, and several blood vessels are now leaking. Stitching one vessel is easy, but this is a messy tangle of too many. The best way to handle this is to cauterize all the vessels at once. But he doesn't have the right tool, which is a cautery pen. Raymond scratches his head, desperate for an alternative. And suddenly, a thought strikes him. Magic. Without wasting time, he unlocks aqua magic for 80 skill points. Even though fire isn't part of that branch, he plans to use water pressure and steam to seal the wounds. Still, fear creeps in. What if he causes serious burns? Or what if he loses control of the range? The risk is real, but he knows this might be his only shot. Just Just then, a window pops up, notifying Raymond that his high intelligence boosts his control over the magic skill. With that, his confidence returns, and he feels reassured that leveling up was the right call. He summons the weakest fire, catching Hansen off guard, since he had no idea Raymond could use magic. Using the flames, Raymond stops the blood loss and ties off the largest nicked blood vessel. Hansen hands him the cord, and Dr. Ray stitches everything up, smiling as he announces the bleeding has completely stopped. When Hansen asks how he knows magic, Raymond shrugs it off, saying he learned it as a hobby. He tosses in a made-up story about discovering it in some ancient ruins that collapsed afterward. Hansen doesn't press further. Still, he figures out that no one shares the secrets that give them an edge. They get back to the operation, where the soon-to-be great healer explains that the only thing left is to repair the mercenary. If the knife had gone any deeper, things could have turned real bad. Hansen, who once thought Raymond was just a talentless hack, now sees him in a new light, especially after he saved the princess and earned a Bringer award. One thing is clear: medical science can save people even when healing magic falls short. Questions start bubbling up in Hansen's mind, like what kind of technique this is and whether he could learn it too. He wonders if Raymond would teach him if he asked. After finishing Klein's case, a window pops up, awarding Raymond bonus experience points for treating a patient on the brink of death beyond his grade. When Hansen asks if they're done, Raymond flashes a huge smile and thanks him, clearly thrilled to have saved another life. He even says he couldn't have done it without Hansen's help. Afterwards, Klein wakes up and asks if he's in the White Infirmary. Great Healer and Hansen are by his bedside, and Dr. Ray explains that his condition was too risky to delay treatment, so they operated on him at Belland. Klein recalls how Lance had planned to dump him out, but before he can say more, Count August rushes in, frantic for his son. Hansen is stunned to learn Klein is actually the son of the great noble of the South. He believed Belland was the right place for treatment, costly but reliable. Wanting to reward his son's rescuer, Count August asked whether it was Buck or Lance. Hansen proudly announced that it was Sir Raymond who stepped up. Klein quickly realized it was the Shadow Prince, the same man who had saved the princess. Hansen added that while Lance was ready to throw Klein into the White Infirmary, Raymond took the risk instead. That was all Count August needed to hear before demanding to know why his son was nearly thrown out. Hansen explained that Klein's disguise made him look like a penniless beggar, which enraged the noble. Meanwhile, Lance's lackeys showed up late with the news. Only after everything was already settled, shocked that such a high-ranking noble was visiting Belland, he quickly decided to meet him as the master healer. Still, he had no idea why someone of that status would come when no nobles were admitted. When Lance finally arrived, he gave a long, overly respectful introduction, trying hard to make an impression, but the Count stared at him with pure disgust and bluntly asked if he was the one who left his son to suffer. Lance stammered, saying he would never let a noble's son die and insisting it was all a misunderstanding. But the fury in August and Klein's eyes told a different story as they glared at him, and the tension sent chills down Lance's spine. That's when it hit him the patient he tried to kick out was Count August's son. Desperate to cover it up, he claimed he had assigned his best man, Sir Ray, to treat such an important patient, even mentioning how the Shadow Prince saved the princess. But everyone saw through his panicked attempt to smooth things over. That's when Klein snapped and said he remembered everything perfectly. He repeated Lance's exact words about not treating penniless beggars and mocked how Lance asked how a bum managed to walk in. That was more than enough to make Count August furious, knowing his son was denied treatment and insulted on top of it. And now Lance had the nerve to lie right in front of him. With no way out, Lance fell to his knees, begging for forgiveness and saying he made a huge mistake by not recognizing who Klein was. August grew furious at Lance's excuse that it was just an error, snapping back and asking if that meant it would have been fine to let his son die if he weren't a noble. It sickened Count August to see someone like Lance holding the respected title of Master Healer, especially with how he treated people's lives. Without any hesitation, August ordered an arrest warrant issued in Lance's name, charging him with contempt of a noble in a court of law. Lance dropped to his knees, begging for mercy. But August fired right back, asking if Lance had ever shown mercy to the poor. Without a shred of doubt, August swore that Lance would never work as a healer again anywhere in the entire United Empire of the Cross. Right then, August's guards hauled the disgraced man away. Both Hansen and Dr. Ray agreed he got exactly what he deserved. After that, Count August bows deeply to the Shadow Prince to show his gratitude. This completely catches him by surprise. Raymond humbly asks him to lift his head, explaining that he only did his duty as a healer. But August insists he owes Raymond a huge debt for saving the heir to House August. That definitely sounds like it's reward time. For a brief moment, Dr. Ray pictures himself being showered in gold. However, Count August already knows what Raymond said at the name day celebration. He believes that a truly honest healer wouldn't care about wealth, even from the king. This leaves the Count unsure how to repay him, while Raymond silently fumes because he really needs the money. So Count August decides to make Raymond a friend of House August. When Raymond asks why, August explains that while the Bringer Award holds no real authority as their friend, their house can provide the power instead. It suddenly clicks for Raymond. With noble backing, he won't be dismissed as a nobody, and he won't risk upsetting House August. Raymond feels honored but humbly insists he still needs to charge for the treatment, because that's the infirmary's policy. So he goes ahead and issues the bill, confident that this time they'll actually pay him. August and Klein both feel incredibly awkward in that moment. Finally, Klein breaks the silence and asks why Raymond offered his services for free, especially since his death could have advanced the second prince's plot, putting the third prince and House August in grave danger and making any reward seem small. Klein then explains that the struggle for the throne will only become more difficult. He wonders if Raymond is truly ready to navigate this dangerous storm. Raymond was never in a social position to claim the throne, being born a bastard, but August can't ignore what's happened recently. He believes even a sharp needle can poke through a sealed pocket. And today's Raymond is exactly that, someone with incredible power who stands out and is sure to provoke the princes even more. The path to success will draw all sorts of attention, especially enemies trying to take him down. He won't be easy to ignore or silence. August only wants to see Raymond spread his wings as a healer. That's why he hopes House August will shelter him, even if just briefly. Meanwhile, word reaches the second prince, Chiron, that Dr. Ray saved Klein's life. Hearing this, the failed assassin begs for forgiveness. He explains that Bellin never treats poor patients, so Klein had no chance of surviving. No one could have expected him to live, especially since nobody knew Raymond had healing abilities. Chiron can't believe that after everything he did for Ray, his plan still ended up ruined. After listening to it all, Chiron decides they must keep a close watch on Ray. It turns out their old mutt has picked up some new tricks. Meanwhile, the novice healer is overflowing with joy. He's thrilled that the day he's been waiting for the past 5 years, has finally arrived. The healer certification exam means his time as an apprentice is officially over. Rumors spread like wildfire that Lance was kicked out of Belland Infirmary because of Ray. He saved the princess first, then treated the heir of House August, yet some still dismiss it as pure luck. But this blonde kid thinks it's a bit too convenient to call it luck 3 times in a row. He can't help wondering if medical science, even if it's not magical healing, might actually have real power. The blonde receives some serious glares. Others dismiss it as fake healing, just brutal cutting. He points out that the king declared it official. They insist the king went soft for his son, favoring royal blood. They're also amused to learn today is Raymond's exam, believing the results will reveal the truth. Now they're all placing bets on Ray. Meanwhile, Hansen watches the whole situation unfold. Afterward, Raymond takes his seat, overjoyed that the day has finally come after 5 years, the healer certification exam. Backbenchers immediately notice the Shadow Prince, a lowly elf who saved the princess. They grudgingly allow him to take the test, secretly hoping he'll fail and humiliate the king. Their gossip sends a wave of worry through Raymond as he wonders what will happen if he fails. No second chances. He'd just be labeled worthless trash all over again. Sensing his panic, Hansen asks what he plans to do if he passes. After 5 years of apprenticeship, surely he has something he wants to pursue once certified, right? Raymond thinks for a moment about feasting on meat, beef, steak, all kinds of rich food, and he almost drools. But that's not what Hansen wants to hear, so Raymond reflects on his time as an apprentice. He remembers that all he ever wanted was to help patients. Without hesitation, he tells Hansen he'll proudly treat patients and dedicate his entire life to their care. Honestly, Raymond enjoys helping people and seeing how he has helped them. He wishes he could experience that feeling more often. This activates Heart of Steel with HSI generous thoughts. Dr. Ray feels calmed down. He finally breaks through, understanding how Heart of Steel works. Just thinking about HSI work triggers it. Hansen really hopes Ray passes this exam. Meanwhile, the blonde kid watches them chat, noticing how confident the Shadow Prince seems today. Right then, Ray gets called in front of the examiners, confirming his grade is F. Even so, they demand to see his healing abilities, and Dr. Ray puts on a show of his magic. The examiners don't look impressed. They all burst out laughing, saying that tiny leaking magic isn't healing at all. One of them dares to ask why he came here today when he doesn't qualify for the exam. Raymond simply says he is aware of his shortcomings. The examiner cuts him off, telling him to leave and stop wasting time. As it turns out, Raymond came prepared for exactly this. He purchased a skill called Eloquence from the skill market. He activates it, speaking more effectively. The Shadow Prince's tone changes as he declares, asking if the Tower of Healing objects to the king's approval, calling it defiance. He says he knows his healing is weak, but he insists on using medical science, which King Odin de Houston has approved. Without a doubt, the king recognizes this as an official method. Examiners from the Tower of Healing exchange uneasy glances as Raymond calmly asks the Houston chapter intends to ignore the king's decree. The red-haired examiner is stunned by how sharply Raymond flipped the argument. He points out that all healers in the Empire of the Cross operate under the Tower of Healing's authority. So if the tower refuses to accept anything outside their traditional methods, they are also going against the king himself. Raymond then presses the point: if the Houston chapter truly respects the king of their land, then he deserves the chance to prove whether his methods actually work or not. One of the judges agrees with Raymond's reasoning, unwilling to challenge royal authority. And just like that, the novice healer is given a patient to treat, his official shot at becoming a certified healer. For a moment he feels thrilled, but that joy vanishes instantly when he sees the condition of his assigned patient. At the Tower of Healing, just before the exam, the red-haired examiner decides to assign Sir Raymond this particular patient for his test. The old woman admits that even Tras, a grade B healer, couldn't treat this patient, leading some to think it's unsuitable for the exam. But the redhead reminds them of Ray's expertise in medical science. This is the man who electrocuted the princess to save her, and once sliced a man's body and sewed it back together. The only concern now is whether they're truly allowing a barbarian to become a healer, and it seems the redhead is scheming to make Raymond fail. Another examiner worries that Count August won't be pleased if word gets out, but the redhead calmly replies that the exam is his domain alone, and Count August has no say in Tower of Healing matters. He can't stand the idea that a bastard would dare apply for the exam. Even his cousin, the mother of the fourth prince, agrees that the boy must not pass. Another judge quickly realizes that Count Linson has already decided to fail Raymond. Afterward, Raymond is assigned his patient, and honestly, it feels like he hit the jackpot when he sees it's a bedsor's case. Count Linson can't understand why Raymond looks so relieved and happy, especially when even a grade B healer couldn't handle pressure ulcers. Raymond politely thanks the examiners before getting to work. Linson starts wondering if Raymond has gone mad from stress or just doesn't realize what's coming. Later, Raymond speaks with the patient's son. He explains that he needs to examine the patient first to determine the prognosis. As soon as he enters the room, Raymond smells something acrid. The son apologizes for the stench, but Raymond puts him at ease, saying he didn't exactly expect roses, and he immediately guesses the father is in pain. That surprises the son, since most healers were too disgusted to even look. Then Raymond takes the patient's history and learns he's been bedridden for quite some time. During the examination, he checks the bedsore and sees they're in bad shape, but at least they haven't reached the bone, so treatment should be manageable. When the son asks about it, the soon-to-be great healer explains that only the rotten skin needs to be removed, allowing new skin to grow. The son says other healers tried the same, but the sores always came back, which catches Raymond off guard, making him realize the real issue: pressure ulcers come from bad posture when someone stays in bed too long without proper care. However, Raymond thinks that might not be the real problem here and decides to proceed with removing the dead skin anyway. Carefully carving out the infected area, he tells the son that the treatment will involve surgery and that he should have a little faith. After that, Raymond gets into his gear and sees his attunement reaching 18, which is pretty high for a novice resident. Scraping out the dead tissue is going to be a piece of cake. He calmly removes the rotting flesh and clears away the discharge while the patient's son stresses out in the back, watching Raymond casually knife his father like it's just another day at work. In the end, Raymond sanitizes the wound using herbs packed with natural antibiotics. Asked, Raymond says the first stage of treatment is complete, and for the next stage, he'll need the son's help. He gives clear, simple instructions: his father's position must be changed regularly throughout the day by rolling him over in bed. The son looks completely lost, so Raymond breaks it down for him, explaining that bed sores can be prevented by changing posture frequently. On top of that, he says the infection still needs attention, so he'll stick around until his father's condition improves, as they keep up with the routine. Raymond eventually declares the old man out of danger and safe from falling back into the same cycle of bed sores. Right then, the old man and his son thanked Raymond from the bottom of their hearts, especially since even a grade B healer couldn't do anything about it, and apparently they couldn't afford a higher-ranking healer. They felt truly grateful for Raymond's kindness. After advising them to keep changing the patient's posture regularly to prevent more bed sores, Raymond wraps up his job. Word soon reaches Count Linson, who finds it hard to believe. The nerdy judge reminds him that he saw it with his own eyes, and the new skin formation is real. Now they have no real excuse to fail Raymond. Linson starts stressing about what he'll say to the fourth prince, especially since there's no proper way to rank someone with a grade F, who just healed a patient needing a grade B healer. The nerd suggests giving Raymond a grade B, or even a grade A, but Linson immediately shuts that down. There's no way he's letting that happen. Count Linson is panicking, because all his plans have completely fallen apart. However, he points out that although Raymond's ancient technique did heal a difficult patient, his healing is still ranked grade F, and no matter how much extra credit is given, anything above grade D is simply impossible. But the others believe it is unfair to give him a grade D when he treated a condition closer to grade B+. Count August definitely will not like this, but Linson reminds them that August has no right to meddle in tower matters. Then the nerdy judge mentions that both the princess this, and the king might get involved if they hear Raymond received a grade D after healing the prince's grade A condition. Linson clenches his fists. He struggles internally to find a way to satisfy the fourth prince's mother without angering the king. He sends a request to contact the capital, also known as the Head Tower, to update them on the situation. As it happens, the United Empire of the Cross consists of 10 nations, and the emperor lives in the capital, which is the Head Tower of Healing. Even the King of Houston cannot defy a decision from the Head Tower. Everyone agrees, and their inquiry is sent to the Head Tower. Not long after, the response from the Head Tower arrives. Linson tears open the letters. One glance is enough to make his eyes widen in shock. The Head Tower has rated Raymond as grade U. This is the first time this mysterious grade has ever been used. They interpret as undetermined, since even the Head Tower struggled to reach a verdict on this case. Just like them. Well, Linson is certain that neither the fourth prince's mother nor the king will have a problem with the result. Even if Raymond is officially recognized as a healer, the medical sciences will still not be accepted as a legitimate form of treatment. So in the end, everything works out in Linson's favor, and that is how the world's very first grade U came into existence, starting with Ray. Among his peers, Raymond was still teased and mocked for having a useless grade, with people saying he got his skills from witchcraft. They thought it was fitting for a bastard like him. From that point on, the letter U became his symbol. But as time passed, people began to see grade U in a new light, calling it untouchable or even ultimate, something far above grade SSS. It even surpassed the mythical grade X, turning grade U into the most powerful rank of all. But that part of the story happens much later. But for now, in the present moment, Raymond sheds tears of joy for finally passing the certification exam and becoming an official healer. He says goodbye to the days of apprenticeship, plain veggie soup, and stale bread, because now he can finally walk the path of steak. With a fiery grin, he strikes a match and announces it's time to escape this nightmare called Belland Infirmary, planning to burn it all down. Just as he's about to leave, Hansen catches up with him. Healer Ray nearly jumps out of his skin, quickly claiming it's cold, so he's just trying to warm things up. But Hansen calmly points out it's summer. After that, Hansen shares that he received a grade C. Raymond then asks about his plans as a certified healer, and Hansen awkwardly admits he's not really sure, even though Maple Infirmary sent him a message. This news excites Ray, knowing it's one of the 3 largest infirmaries in the capital, practically controlling healthcare for everyday people in the area. Raymond offers his genuine congratulations, but Hansen immediately asks what Raymond plans to do next. Raymond dodges the question, saying he'd rather treat Hansen to a nice meal. Hansen wonders how an apprentice like Raymond could afford that. Raymond admits he took out a loan from Healer Lending after getting certified. Hansen is shocked and asks what possessed Raymond to do such a thing, but Raymond just smirks and says he has his reasons, though food is the priority for now. Later, the 2 newly certified healers hit the bottle and drink through the entire night. Seeing the Shadow Prince in such a cheerful mood, Hansen figures this is the perfect moment to ask something that's been weighing on his mind. He takes a deep breath and goes for it. He asks where Raymond found that ancient relic related to medical sciences. Even if it's broken or incomplete, Hansen says he just wants to explore it and maybe learn something, and he promises to keep it a secret. But Ray, completely drunk, quickly bursts that bubble by blurting out that there is no relic. He says he just randomly received a blessing of medical knowledge one day while cleaning. That nonsense sets Hansen off. He thinks it's a complete joke and doesn't believe it for a second. Still, Hansen says he understands after everything Raymond has been through. Maybe he just doesn't want to talk about it. Even so, he still hopes Raymond would trust him enough to share it. Hansen, clearly hurt, storms off without another word. Days later at Maple Infirmary, Hansen learns that Lore Infirmary reached out to Sir Raymond. That's the top infirmary in the capital, second only to the exclusive Helian Infirmary for nobles. He can't help noticing how the Shadow Prince is already overtaking him, but then he overhears some jerks gossiping that the Shadow Prince actually turned down their offer. Something Hansen never expected. Hansen completely loses composure. He barges into the Shadow Prince's dorm and shakes him awake from a peaceful sleep. Demanding to know why he refused Lore's offer, he tries to drill it into the Shadow Prince's head that Lore is better than Maple Infirmary in every way. But Ray, still groggy, drops the real reason he's decided to start his own infirmary. That throws Hansen off completely. Raymond reminds him he already took a loan from Healer Lending just for this. Hansen gets even more heated, asking how a rookie like him thinks he can pull off something so big. He's furious, thinking Raymond is treating it like child's play. He lays it out straight. Raymond needs real work experience before jumping into something this huge. But Ray, stubborn as ever, says this has been his dream ever since he became a healer. Sure, he's just a novice resident who still needs hands-on experience to level up, but that's exactly the point. He turned down the prestigious Lore Infirmary because he knew he'd be stuck watching high-ranking healers treat patients instead of getting in the game himself, especially since the Tower of Healing doesn't take his methods seriously. It only pushes Raymond harder to open his own place. He wants to prove that medical sciences can stand on their own. Hansen, still trying to talk some sense into him, brings up that the whole region is already covered by the big infirmaries, leaving Raymond no room to set up shop. Right then, Raymond points straight at the map, showing a poor area that caught his eye. Hansen argues he won't earn a single dime there, no matter how hard he works. That doesn't bother Raymond one bit. He's not chasing money. He just wants a steady stream of patients so he can keep learning and improving, aiming to become the top healer in the whole land. The news hits Hansen pretty hard, but he understands. Meanwhile, the third prince, Remerton, hears about Raymond turning down Lore's offer and starting his own clinic. He had fully expected Raymond to take the offer, so hearing he refused caught him off guard. Turns out, Remerton was the one who arranged the offer in the first place, as a way to thank the Shadow Prince for saving Count August's hair. Remerton had even spoken with August and praised the Shadow Prince for protecting such valuable intel. His plan was to train Raymond under Lore and later bring him over to his own side. If only the guy hadn't been such a fool and refused. When his lackey asks if he actually believes in medical sciences, Remerton says he doesn't really care. If it saves lives, that's all that matters. Now that Dr. Ray has thrown away the golden opportunity handed to him, Remerton figures they're clearly walking different paths. He still sees Ray as a fool. Then he hears that Dr. Ray plans to set up his infirmary in the Bay Quarter. Remerton can't believe it. That idiot actually picked a rundown, dirt-poor, lawless area way out in the northwest outskirts of the capital. It's a place no noble in their right mind would ever bother with. A century ago, the Houston Kingdom got beaten by the Droton Kingdom and lost a big chunk of southern land. Houston folks who lost their homes were moved to the edge of the capital, relocated to the outskirts. This led to the creation of the massive slums in Vey. The entire kingdom had suffered heavily from the war, so they weren't able to provide much help to the people living in those slums. 100 years later, the Vey Quarter has become this massive problem everyone in Houston pretends doesn't exist. Even so, King Houston once declared that anyone who could ease the unrest in Vey would be granted any reward they wished. Despite that, all three princes Karen, Remerton, and Settle, as well as the proud swordsman and fourth prince, all tried and failed to bring peace to Vey. In the end, Remerton concluded that this place can't be fixed. It needs to be burned to the ground, because there's no other way. Even though everyone else ignored the Vey slums, their father was fixated on those people, always seeing them as Houston citizens. Now that everyone else has failed to address the issue, Remerton sees the Shadow Prince taking his turn. Meanwhile, at Beland Infirmary, everyone judges the bastard's choice for picking Vey of all places. They think bastards like him will fit in there. On the day of Ray's departure, his former patients tried to stop him from stepping into that dangerous territory. But this didn't shake Raymond's belief. He promises to be successful enough so they can visit him one day. Right in the middle, Hansen informs Raymond that there's a letter addressed to him, which weirds him out. Dr. Ray, after bidding farewell to everyone, asks Hansen to come along. Turns out Princess Sophia wrote the letter, trying to convince Raymond to reconsider going to Vey, saying he'll regret it if he does. Without a shred of doubt, he crumbles the paper into a ball like it's trash. While Hansen tries to talk some sense into him, he lets Ray know the risks and dangers of that area, which he isn't familiar with. Raymond bursts his bubble by revealing he lived there, so he knows it well. That knocks the wind out of Hansen, who suddenly remembers how the Shadow Prince once lived in that poor neighborhood. He tells Raymond how his own mother died there before he was moved to the palace, but Raymond simply says that people there live like anyone else. And honestly, he finds it way better than both the palace and Beland Infirmary. That's when he finally shares with Hansen his childhood dream of opening an infirmary in that very place. So he assures Hansen that he'll be just fine. Without hesitation, Hansen insists on coming with him, which catches Raymond off guard, especially since Hansen is supposed to be heading to Maple Infirmary. In a moment of frustration, Hansen spills the beans that Maple reeks of even greedier misers than the ones at Beland. Dr. Ray, a bit embarrassed, admits that he does care about money too, but deep down all he really wants is tons of experience. Hansen knows the truth. Raymond always puts his patients first, which is exactly why he wants to work with him. On the inside, Raymond thinks of himself as a money-hungry, experience-hungry little pug. Then, out of nowhere, Hansen reveals his real reason he wants to observe medical sciences, just to learn something from it. That makes Raymond extremely nervous, because how can a novice resident like him teach anyone? Hansen starts to wonder if Raymond simply doesn't want to teach him. Suddenly, a glowing window pops up, displaying Hansen's request to learn. This triggers something called FOSS status mode, and asks Raymond if he's willing or not. This student mode is completely new to the Shadow Prince, and at first, he has no idea what it's all about. It turns out to be a gateway for him to earn skill points in a fresh way. The more medically skilled Hansen becomes, the more Raymond benefits. Whenever the student heals a patient, a portion of the experience points gets shared with Ray. That blows his mind, making him feel like he's just struck gold. He remembers needing 200 experience points just to level up after level 20, so this is a total game changer. Still, when it comes to teaching, there are some restrictions he has to deal with. Meanwhile, Hansen's heart is pounding like crazy, hoping the Shadow Prince says yes. Suddenly, Raymond agrees to teach him, but only if he himself studies harder. Hansen quickly bows to his new master, grateful for being given the chance. Meanwhile, Raymond achieves the achievement of having his very first student. It instantly earns him 5 skill points and a new skill called Slapdash Schooling, ranked level D, which matches a residence level. Raymond knows this might bring trouble, but he also knows no one becomes a master overnight. With Hansen gaining experience, Raymond believes he'll reach his own goals even faster. Just like that, the medical school that would one day become legendary welcomed its very first student. As they're about to head to the Vey quarter, Hansen shows up in what looks like full combat gear. Raymond jokes that it looks like he's off to war instead of opening a clinic, but Hansen shoots back, totally serious about how dangerous the place really is. He even glares at his soon-to-be great healer, accusing him of hiding chainmail under his clothes too. Raymond hesitates, then admits it, saying he treats his body like a temple and there's no harm in being prepared. Hansen asks if he's not even a little scared. Raymond definitely feels the fear now that they're actually going, but he keeps a straight face in front of Hansen. Then Hansen hands him a club, telling him to protect that temple body of his. As soon as Raymond grabs it, the self-defense skill learning phase kicks in, but his stats are too low to unlock any actual self-defense skills yet. Turns out this system is designed for doctors working in dangerous zones. Raymond is blown away by his sudden luck with magic and self-defense, and for a moment he feels like some kind of legendary mage warrior. Meanwhile, Hansen notices Raymond completely frozen in place and calls him back to reality. Snapped out of it, Raymond pulls himself together, fully pumped to head into the Vey quarter with his new confidence. Still, that nervous tension refuses to let go of either of them. As they finally step into the Vey quarter, both of them try to convince themselves that everything's going to be fine. Even though Raymond feels like he's about to pee his pants, he tries to keep cool. Then, he points out the shady folks glaring at them from the shadows, their eyes full of disgust. Raymond tries to lighten the mood by saying those are the same people he once struggled alongside. Their nasty glares make both of them even more anxious, sending chills down their spines. Raymond suggests they head straight to the infirmary and avoid wandering around this eerie place. When they finally arrive, they're stunned to find it completely empty. Not a single soul in need of treatment. Raymond tries to brush it off, saying it's just the first day, so they can't expect much. But even hours later, no one shows up. The same thing happens the next day, and the day after that it's starting to feel boring and kind of depressing for Raymond. Hansen tries to reassure him, saying it's probably because the people in Vey haven't heard about their clinic yet. Right then, Raymond shouts that it's impossible since he made sure to draw the symbol of medicine nicely and big on the door. When it comes to news spreading in the slums, he knows word travels fast. Just as he's ranting, out of nowhere, someone throws a stone into their clinic, shattering the window. That catches them off guard. Hansen quickly darts outside and shouts for Raymond to come look. He points at the message scribbled on the infirmary wall, which says this isn't a play area for kids like them, and they'd better get lost or die. Later, Hansen urgently tells Raymond they need to leave immediately because it's not safe for them there. Raymond understands the severity of the situation and agrees they'd be in serious trouble if they stayed. Even then, Raymond doesn't feel like giving up just yet, especially with the massive debt hanging over his head. While trying to keep his cool, he's fighting an intense war inside, knowing that quitting now would mean throwing everything away. More importantly, he's already spent all his money buying and renovating this place, and if it fails, it's all going straight down the drain. Even if he tries selling it again, there's no way he'd make a decent profit. On top of everything, there's still a massive amount of interest to pay, and just thinking about it sends chills down his spine. Plus, Raymond knows the healer lending group is dead serious about their money, so he's stuck in a tight spot. He has to make this infirmary succeed and pay them back, or things went really bad for him. Just then, a new quest appears in front of him. Change the hearts of the slums and soften them, since the people of Vey have long endured neglect and cruelty from the rest of the kingdom. The quest calls for a half-doctor, someone who not only heals but also connects, earns trust, and builds bonds with the people. If he pulls it off, the reward is massive, a bonus level and 30 skill points. His debts are crushing, and his clinics are falling apart, but this new quest might be the lifeline he needs. No doubt about it, one thing is clear. There's no room for failure, especially with dangerous threats looming. He decides to stay, but Ray leaves the choice up to Hansen, letting him decide whether to stay or go. Hansen's eyes light up as if he's found new respect, noticing how much Raymond cares about the poor. But Raymond's mind is locked on one thing, paying off that crushing debt. Because that noble choice, Hansen insists on staying, thinking that leaving would be a shameful move on his part. Raymond realizes this guy has the wrong idea, but instead of correcting him, he turns his focus to what really matters, which is the need to do something about the situation before it spirals out of control. Right then, Ray gets an idea. At the slum plaza in the city, Hansen starts shaking like a leaf at the sight of such a big crowd. Raymond steps in to calm him down, reminding him about the chainmail hidden under his healer outfit. Raymond actually prefers a place full of people over an empty street. Between the two of them, the novice healer is the icebreaker, trying to spark a conversation with the two men standing in front of them. He reminds them it's him, Ray, and casually asks how they've been. The men are shocked to see the little boy who once went off to the palace standing there now. In the hope of being recognized, Raymond decides to play the nostalgia card. Like a burst of light, he talks about how nice it feels to be back in Vey after so long, like coming home. He even throws in a childhood story about getting beaten like a stray dog by Mr. Bob and Mr. Tom's, hoping it will hit the right emotional chord. The cold look in their eyes says a lot, and inside Raymond starts to panic, wondering if any of this is actually working. Then the men snap, demanding to know when the heck he came back, especially after becoming royalty and earning that fancy title. They make it crystal clear that Vey isn't some place for royal entertainment. It stings, knowing these people don't even see him as one of their own anymore, like he's just another noble in their eyes. Well, he can't really blame them. It's been 15 years since he last stepped foot here. If nostalgia isn't doing the trick, then he has to face them head on. Right then, Heart of Steel activates, triggered by his genuine efforts for the people of the Vey slums. He responds to the men directly, shutting down their assumptions and making it clear that's not how he sees this place. Without wasting time, he lays it all out, saying he's here to treat the sick. That's when the blue window activates the eloquent skill, and his strong will to help the sick comes through with powerful clarity. The eloquent skill and Heart of Steel work together perfectly. Raymond boldly states that even though he's the king's son with the freedom to go anywhere, he chose to come here. He notices the mood shifting as people start talking about why a healer would show up in a place like this. His plan is falling into place. He speaks honestly, saying the poor suffer from illness just like anyone else, but there's never anyone to heal them. Then he opens up about his past, revealing how his own mother died right here, untreated and forgotten. Hansen feels the weight of that. That story hits him hard. Soon Raymond's voice echoes through all of Vey, as he shares that his true reason for coming back is to treat their sickness. Being poor or not having a title should never be a reason to be denied care. That care is why he has stepped into Vey to run his infirmary. Though he understands why no one would believe him, Raymond still makes an offer to treat the sick in the deepest part of town, down on Crescent Street. Hansen starts freaking out while the crowd finds it seriously weird that this guy would choose a place even they avoid. Turns out, Crescent Street is the roughest area in all of Vey, also known as the Entertainment District. It's where the cursed people live and work, and most folks want nothing to do with it. Raymond boldly declares that he's taking a vow to lift God's curse from everyone affected. On the way there, Hansen nervously wonders if the curse might actually be an infectious disease, which would doom them both. He tries to reason with Ray, pointing out that the cursed live apart from everyone else for a reason, but Raymond goes to check for himself. He calmly tells Hansen he's free to wait outside if he's too worried. That sends a chill down Hansen's spine. He quickly decides to stick with him, saying he's interested in medical science and wants to learn more by Ray's side. Raymond isn't all that keen on being called master or anything like that. As soon as they rush inside, things take a turn. He bumps into a woman who looks like a creepy ghost, running low on sleep and caffeine. Raymond comes clean and says he's there to heal them, but she finds that absolutely hilarious. She reveals her skin covered in red spots and dares the so-called healer to cure what she calls the curse of God. Hansen immediately thinks it must be infectious. Ray insists on taking a closer look. That surprises the woman, since most people wouldn't dare come near them. He quickly examines the red spots and some ulcers too. It's clear to him that this isn't a curse, just a simple skin disease. With her permission, he asks to examine the others as well, including all affected areas. The women are willing to show their skin, though they warn Raymond not to blame them if he ends up cursed. He calmly explains that this disease doesn't spread by touch, so they can relax. Not only that, he takes the time to educate the women, letting them know it's nothing supernatural, just a treatable skin disease. Whispers start floating among the women, but Ray gently breaks the truth that it's syphilis. When asked about the cure, the soon-to-be great healer explains the spots will fade and the disease becomes dormant, since it's a strain of syphilis. Some were lucky to get treated early and manage their symptoms before things got worse. Those with advanced stages were unfairly labeled as cursed by God. Hansen scribbles down all this ancient medical knowledge like he just unlocked a hidden treasure. Raymond remembers that the treatment is the same for all types of syphilis. Without missing a beat, he asks for some stale, rotten bread. He plans to create a magic pellet. Hansen has no clue what Raymond is up to, but he beams with a big big smile and gives him his full support anyway. The magic pellet is actually the legendary drug penicillin, the one that flipped the entire medical world upside down. There's no need to go all out making it just for syphilis when Lapentina's herbs can do the job fine. The only problem is that what he really needs is way too expensive, which is a real bummer. Raymond starts whining and calling out to his future treasures. The riches he swears will be his someday. Compared to rare ingredients, moldy bread is way cheaper, so he decides to extract penicillin from that instead. Sometime later, Raymond manages to create a penicillin solution. He mixes it with the staph bacteria he collected from the patient's skin, and right then and there, he watches the penicillin do its work, wiping out the bacteria completely. That's how Lapentina got its very first batch of antibiotics, thanks to the Shadow Prince, and he earns the title of creator of penicillin. It's something even future generations will respect. For this breakthrough, he gets 100 skill points and 2 bonus level ups. On top of that, he learns the skill of alchemy, though his extraction level is still low. Right after that, basic alchemy kicks in and floods his brain like a burst of knowledge, giving him the power to pull components from herbs and turn them into usable extracts. This way, he figured out how to cut down the amount he needed and drastically lowered his expenses. Now that's a nice sight. Gold piling up and making medicine just got way easier. Fast forward to the application part. He had all the women from the entertainment district rub the ointment all over their bodies. That pretty much drained the energy out of these two dummies, and they started dreaming about getting a day off. Days passed, and the women were honestly shocked to see their skin glowing like it used to. They believed the curse had finally lifted and couldn't thank the healer enough. They had no idea how to repay him, especially knowing how expensive it all must have been. Raymond clearly sees that these women were left behind in the mess of Islam for so long, so expecting money isn't realistic. But he isn't too worried because this is how he plans to promote his infirmary. He humbly tells the women that helping the sick is his calling and their recovery is all the reward he needs. Though deep down, he knows that if his infirmary catches on like wildfire, his fortune will come in time. Before heading out, he invites anyone with similar symptoms to visit the infirmary for treatment, which lights up their day even more. Deep inside, he's gloating, secretly hoping these women will spread the word about his good deeds and help shape his future. Meanwhile, the other women can't believe someone like him exists, especially since the healers they met before were nothing but crooks. Hansen, on the other hand, is ready to crash into bed. Sooner or later, news of the women from Crescent Street getting healed spreads like wildfire across Vey, all thanks to the Shadow Prince's free treatment. Word gets around that Raymond opened an infirmary, and now people are starting to see him differently, not as just another bratty prince. One person even mentions taking their mother to see him. Just like that, Raymond finally completes the quest called Convert the Hearts of the Slums, and unlocks the achievement Helper of the Common Folk. He earns 30 skill points, and wins considerable goodwill from the people of V. Reaching such a meaningful goal brings tears to Raymond's eyes. The next day, a huge crowd shows up, all eager for his examination. The infirmary is packed, and Dr. Ray is overjoyed, knowing his fortune is close. Without hesitation, Healer Ray tells everyone to line up and take a number. Then he starts seeing patients, one by one, treating them while earning more experience and skill points. Even Hansen enjoys helping under Raymond's care. Raymond grins at the commission from Hansen's experience, which speeds up his leveling. He's truly proud of taking Hansen under his wing. An old woman compliments Raymond on his gentle and kind nature. She says other healers were cruel and disrespectful to her. Her son can't stop thanking them. The Shadow Prince for healing his mother. That grateful smile warms Raymond's heart. Later, Hansen curiously asks how he discovered the cure for syphilis. Raymond starts to say it's from an ancient relic, then quickly tries to cover it up. Hansen doesn't believe him and calls him out, asking if the knowledge just popped into his head. Finally, Raymond breaks and admits it with a loud yes, shouting it's true and he can't help it. Hansen just shrugs and accepts it. Suddenly, a woman runs into the Shadow Prince's arms, crying and begging him to help her sick mother. As she explains her mother's stomach issues, Hansen quietly notes how deeply Raymond is committed to helping people no matter what. He remembers it was always like this, even back in Belland without medical science. Raymond still put patients first. Hansen often saw him studying late into the night, doing everything he could to improve. He starts to think maybe Raymond got this mysterious power because he's one of the few who truly care for others. Soon after, Raymond calls Hansen to prep for surgery, and time flies. By nightfall, Raymond finally finishes with the patients, and calls it a day after all the chaos. That's when he grins and asks if Hansen is ready to go over the books. But when Hansen checks the earnings, he's completely stunned. There's barely any money, and they actually lost more than they gained. Raymond reminds him he didn't charge the poorest at all, calling it part of the promotion. Still, this crybaby Hansen clearly didn't expect such a loss. Even so, he knows Raymond would never turn anyone away for not paying. They both decide to give the infirmary more time to shine. and Hansen agrees to work for free a little longer. They see it as an investment in building reputation and skills, hoping that one day, even the rich will line up at their door, and with that they promise to stay strong and wait for that day. Meanwhile, someone lurks in the shadows, cursing Raymond under their breath, clearly unhappy with his growing influence. They've decided he and his clinic won't last much longer. It turns out the illegal healers have been losing customers because of Ray's free treatments and genuine care. Their only survival method was draining the peasants of money and health, so now they're thinking of teaming up to force Raymond to raise his prices, so they can go back to profiting from the desperate and sick. Meanwhile, the great healer in Hansen's experience keeps leveling up. They both continue treating patients, reminding them not to overwork and to take care of themselves. Just then, they hear approaching footsteps. A group of people steps in, asking if they're the new healers in town. Raymond steps forward confidently, calling himself part of the Healer Alliance in Vey. The group complains that Dr. Ray's work is disrupting the entire healing market, claiming he's messing up their order. They demand he raise his prices to 100 pina or shut down and leave Vey. Hansen immediately panics, realizing that's 10 times their current charge, which is insane. Ray gets serious and tells them flat out that no one in Vey can afford that much. But the group doesn't care, bragging that their healing power is a gift from the heavens, and if people want divine treatment, they have to pay the divine price. As for the poor who can't afford it, they don't care if they live or die. That heartless attitude really gets to Raymond. Raymond quickly realizes Vey is drowning in sickness because these scoundrels drain people dry with ridiculous fees, keeping the poor from getting proper treatment. The bitter truth hits him hard, reminding him of how his own mother died thanks to people like these. The memory fills him with disgust. He knows how illegal healers operate, lurking in the shadows after being decertified, and there's no reasoning with them. All they understand is force. With a glare full of rage and disgust, Raymond stares them down. He calls out how disgusting their attitude is, especially when speaking to a noble. A vein throbs in his forehead as his fury builds, and he calls on Hansen to witness how these fools insulted a noble to his face. On top of that, he mentions Count August's name, saying the Count personally sponsors him and wouldn't be happy to hear Dr. Ray was blackmailed into raising prices. Hansen's anger shoots off the charts, and he's ready to report it to the guards. But those scumbags laugh it off, claiming there are scarier forces here than the throne. Raymond knows they're probably right. The city guards wouldn't bother coming to this area, no matter how much gold was offered. Still, he threatens them, saying August's personal guards won't sit idle if anyone tries to hurt him or Hansen. That shuts the scumbags up, their smug faces twisting into worry as they realize August is backing Raymond. Raymond can't help but gloat a little, pleased his words are landing just right. He reassures Hansen that these lowlifes only respond to power, and they'd never dare touch someone with a man like August behind them. While the great healer and Hansen go back to treating their patients, the illegal healers gather for an emergency meeting, all rattled after hearing that Count August is sponsoring the man ruining their shady business. On top of that, the novice healer is technically a noble by name, and if they mess with him further, they risk real charges. That's when they decided to approach Lance. He used to be a healer who lost everything at Belland Infirmary because of Ray's actions. Lance still can't figure out why Raymond ended up in this rundown town of all places. After being charged with contempt and fraud, his license was revoked, forcing him to flee to Vey where he scrapes by as an illegal healer. The thought of Ray succeeding here drives him crazy, so he comes up with a plan: spread rumors that Dr. Ray's healing methods are nothing but tricks and lies. He casually mentions that even a small bribe of 10 pana can make those poor wanderers believe anything. Once the gossip takes hold, the people themselves will chase Raymond out of town. The others love the idea and immediately set the plan in motion, ready to watch Lance finally get his revenge. Suddenly, a man stumbles in, covered in bruises and looking beaten up. He complains that the person he tried to bribe to spread rumors about Raymond ended up getting hit just for suggesting it. It seems the townspeople have finally realized how the illegal healers have been draining their money. Before, they had no choice but to visit those healers no matter how terrible they were, but that's no longer the case. Now the people are ready to punish the illegal healers themselves. At this point, Lance decides it's time to involve the Blue Moon Guild. This surprises everyone, since unlike other greedy guilds, this one is different. The Blue Moon Guild is more like a civil militia that protects the people of Vey from anyone trying to take advantage of them. Even though they don't like illegal healers, the informants reveal that the guild feels the same anger as the townsfolk and is ready to take action. Lance swaggers in like some twisted hero among lowlifes, claiming he has a plan. He explains that the Blue Moon Guild was originally created to fight the Dark Blade, a gang that used to terrorize and rob the people of V, These days merchants pay the guild for protection, so the guild has grown quite powerful. The guild master, Kinsir, is strong and righteous, but he has one major weakness: he's very gullible. Lance visits Kinsir and fills his head with lies, claiming that Dr. Ray is cooking up a big scheme to harm the people. He even tells Kinsir that he was once Raymond's teacher at Belland Infirmary, and the biggest lie is that Lance says Raymond is treating the townspeople like test subjects. For a moment Kinsir looks furious, but then he hesitates, remembering all the rumors that Dr. Ray has been treating people for free. Lance reassures Kinsir that Dr. Ray is only using the people to test new healing methods, and if anything goes wrong, no one would ever find out. He talks about the possible side effects if this continues and insists that Kinsir is the only one we can rely on. After thinking it over, Kinsir finally decides to kick Raymond out. Lance is already overjoyed just imagining Ray being beaten to a pulp. The next day, Kinsir shows up. Blue Window notices a rude customer entering the infirmary, scaring Hansen half to death. Raymond is completely confused. He wonders why this huge, grumpy bear of a man has suddenly appeared in their place. In an instant, Kinsir threatens the new healers, demanding they pack up and leave or face his anger. All Raymond can think about is how his dream of building a fortune from this place is crumbling to dust. Just then, a patient shows up, steps forward demanding to know why Kinsir is so upset. Without hesitation, Kinsir accuses Raymond of using the people of Vey as guinea pigs and running human experiments. Raymond is left speechless while the patients stare with wide-eyed shock. Kinsir shouts that Dr. Ray's healing methods are nothing but tricks, and that the free treatment is just bait to fool them. He orders everyone to leave the infirmary immediately, but Raymond steps in yelling that it's all lies. Suddenly, a blue window pops up, signaling the activation of the skill for dealing with difficult patients, paired with Heart of Steel. It's an unexpected bonus quest that tasks him with treating a rude patient. Apparently, if Raymond reaches out with genuine sincerity, he can win any patient over to his side. Rewards look tempting: 10 skill points, a bonus level up, and the rude patient's full favor. Just like that, Raymond's fear melts away as he enters a state of real calm. The word rude must mean the patient is dealing with something painful. Without wasting time, Raymond suits up and turns on the charm, explaining that his healing technique is actually recognized by the king himself and certified by the Tower of Healing. He points out to Kinsir that the other illegal healers in V are trying to slander him just because his fees are low. That clicks something in Kinsir's mind. He remembers how Lance used to charge outrageous fees, which probably drove the townsfolk crazy. The guy even scammed money out of Blue Moon Guild members. That lights Kinsir's fuse, and he storms off saying he needs to do some verifying and promises to return. But Raymond stops him, knowing this guy is actually the patient mentioned in the quest. Raymond's clever side kicks in hard. There's no way he's letting a high-ranking thug walk away without paying, so he switches to sweet talk mode. While chatting over tea, he casually asks if Kinsir has some nagging issue that other healers couldn't fix. That's when Kinsir finally opens up, looking a bit embarrassed. He admits he's been having recurring problems in his rectum with blood in his stool. Raymond quickly puts 2 and 2 together. It's hemorrhoids. Without missing a beat, he offers to treat it, saying it's a pretty easy fix. Kinsir feels a little unsure. The fact that Lance already drained a fortune from him over this same issue pushes him to trust Raymond's promise that it won't come back. Now the surgery is all set. Dr. Ray identifies the issue as a grade 3 internal hemorrhoid and prepares to surgically remove the affected tissue with precision. His attunement increases to 28. He starts by applying anesthetic herbs, then cuts away the hemorrhoid tissue and ties off the blood vessel with thread. After that, he makes an incision above the tie and stitches up the wound to finish the procedure. Suddenly, a cluster of blue windows appears, awarding him 10 skill points and a level up. Kinsir is stunned at how fast it was done. Raymond calmly tells him he'll be uncomfortable for about 3 days, but recommends sitz baths until the pain fades, then explains what that involves. In the end, Kinsir is all smiles, deeply thankful that Dr. Ray finally fixed a problem he had suffered with for years. Of course, Raymond is really focused on the payment. He thinks 20 or 30 pina would be a nice amount. Kinsir says a few measly coins can't repay true kindness. Raymond doesn't mind hearing about money. What truly shocks him is Kinsir pledging to be his full-time bodyguard in Vey, offering top-level protection for his infirmary. And with that, Kinsir drops a stack of nearly 300 pina. That leaves the great healer and Hansen completely stunned. Saying that, Kinsir storms off to take down Lance. Even when Lance is mentioned, Raymond couldn't care less. He's too excited about having beef for dinner. Meanwhile, Kinsir is out causing chaos, ready to crush Master Lance for conning him and the poor for so long. Raymond can't believe Lance has the nerve to slander a saint like him. The illegal healer squad united admits their mistakes and begs the big guy to spare them. However, Kinsir strikes them, breaking their teeth. He sends them off with a lesson. Anyone who stays in Vey will get a lifetime of porridge. These scoundrels are chased out and never seen in the area again. Meanwhile, after that incident, Raymond's infirmary enjoys great success, and his experience points soar to new heights. He reaches level 28. He's eager to hit level 40 soon. However, he notices the patient flow is draining his physical strength, so he decides to boost his strength first, then invest in intelligence. Soon, his solo leveling will earn him the title of the greatest healer this land has ever seen. One day, Kinsir bursts in with dangerous news. Plague is coming, forcing Raymond to pack up and flee. He's sure anyone who stays will become infected and die. Hansen panics seeing this warning from a giant bear man. Raymond recognizes it as smallpox, with a fatality rate over 30% and as deadly as the Black Plague. He thinks he might save some, but there's no cure that will rescue everyone. However, Raymond's mind is torn about whether to leave or stay. Apparently, the Grim Reaper in Vey is actually smallpox, also called the Cursed Mist or Black Death. This requires everyone to evacuate the area, per the Tower of Healing's emergency rules. Raymond knows smallpox has long been known in general medicine as a mass killer. He doesn't want to become just another number in history, and it's clear that the infected must be burned. Yet the former victim of the curse of God wonders if this is truly the Grim Reaper, or just another disease causing chaos, something Raymond can prove with his knowledge. It's also been a long time since smallpox struck this part of Justo, making its sudden appearance strange. Raymond starts thinking. He asks about the current symptoms. He learns about high fever, terrible blisters all over, and that former victims believe the illness has returned with the same signs. Raymond feels a thrill, as these symptoms could mean many things, so maybe it's treatable. He plans to take a closer look to confirm if it's truly smallpox. Hansen is ready to hear Raymond's thoughts, so they can pack and run. Raymond knows the infected will be burned alive even if it's not smallpox, but Hansen panics, saying they'll surely die alongside the infected if that happens. Raymond needs someone with more expertise to figure this out. Just then, a blue window assigns him a quest to save patients from wrongful death, with medium difficulty. He must use his knowledge to rescue people from unjust death. Promises rewards of 20 skill points and a bonus level up. Just like that, Raymond decides not to abandon Vey, knowing he might be able to help if it's not smallpox. Many diseases like smallpox spread through droplets. An infected person's saliva or mucus can spread the disease just by coughing. In this situation, Raymond needs a physical way to stop droplets from entering their airways. He asks Hansen to bring thick cloth for masks, gloves, and robes to cover the body, because Raymond plans to see the sick himself. Afterward, there is a commotion, with people screaming in pain while a couple begs to leave their children out of this. However, the townsfolk are ready with flames to burn them alive anyway. Out of nowhere, Raymond walks in, wrapped in a cloak like a mummy. The others are getting scared, so Raymond steps in and introduces himself to calm them down. He explains that the house members seem to be infected by the Grim Reaper, and the townspeople are tasked with burning it all down. Raymond asks how they came to that professional diagnosis. After a brief hesitation, they mention high fever and terrible blisters as signs of the Grim Reaper's presence. Raymond points out that measles and shingles have the same symptoms, but this illness hasn't been properly identified yet. He bravely decides to look into it himself, which horrifies the crowd. Still, he goes ahead and opens the marker. He does this just to gain some extra defense, just in case. Without any hesitation, he spends 100 skill points to buy a shield. It's an auxiliary magic skill that helps defend against physical damage, but his low mana means it only lasts a short time. After activating it, he walks in without fear of droplets, at least for now. Hansen is completely stunned when he sees Ray using shield magic. Inside the house, there's a mother with 3 children, all begging for their lives. When they meet Ray the healer, they think he's a prince who has come to rescue them. He insists on examining them first. At first glance, the illness looks like smallpox. It's not the Grim Reaper, it's actually chickenpox. The key difference is there are no spots on the hands and feet, and the white marks are only on the surface. He assures them it will go away on its own, so there's nothing to be afraid of. The woman is completely shocked, and Dr. Ray leaves her absolutely amazed. Afterward, he explains everything to the people outside and calms the fire. Sometime later, the woman prays in gratitude to the Shadow Prince for rescuing her family. She says her children are all fine now. Even the flame warriors from that night thank the Shadow Prince for stopping them from harming the innocent. Right then, his quest comes to an end, and he unlocks the achievement called People's Caretaker. He earns 20 skill points along with level ups, and his reputation grows. He also receives a fair amount of favors. Raymond loves the warm feeling settling inside him, filled with joy seeing V finally reaching some stability. Everyone is happy now, looking forward to a healthier future. Meanwhile, the king is dealing with a problem. Vey is becoming a growing liability, and Droton is on the verge of starting a war. Linson supports the third prince's opinion that Vey must be taken down. Now the final decision is up to the king. This time, Raymond's kitchen is filled with the aroma of grilled meat. Hansen is cooking a feast after the family who had chicken pox shared some meat with them as a thank you. Raymond can't stop drooling and casually mentions that beef helps boost immunity, while Hansen happily serves it up. As they eat, Raymond feels good about hitting level 29 and earning the people's favor. After all the chaos, they're finally enjoying some peace. Raymond is confident that once he reaches level 40, he'll leave his novice days behind, and treating patients will become much easier. Out of nowhere, Hansen asks if Raymond really used shield magic at the infected house. As usual, Raymond panics and starts lying, but then decides to come clean. He confesses the truth about his magic, and Hansen actually thinks it's pretty cool. But the soon-to-be great healer explains the shield only lasts a short time, so it's not a big deal. Hansen figures it's probably because Raymond's mana is low. Mystical power is used for healing magic, auras, and more. Healers heal, mages cast spells, and knights use mana blades and auras. As a healer, Raymond does have some mana, but his stats are around 1. Hansen thinks upgrading mana would really help Raymond treat patients better. Everyone uses mana, but knights, mages, and healers apply it very differently. Knights train by building lower chi under the navel, mages focus on knowledge to form middle chi in the chest, and healers develop upper chi in the brain, which flows through the whole body. Out of all, healers have the hardest time accumulating mana. That's why those with huge natural mana reserves make the best healers, and someone with an F- grade, like Raymond used to be, is considered nothing. That's why he could never really improve his skills. Still, he hasn't figured out which type of mana actually powers his medical science abilities. Out of the 3 sources, novice healer is using magic without storing any energy in his chest, so he figures the system must be doing all the work, and he really needs to read up on it. Just then, a patient's scream shakes the place. Both the great healer and Hansen rush out to help a man who has fallen off a roof. When Raymond finds him not breathing, he immediately tells Hansen to start CPR. Meanwhile, the king is visiting Vey to meet the people, but his servant Garmin isn't happy about it, especially since Prince Remerton got hurt in this dangerous place. King Houston shrugs it off and reminds Garmin that he's a swordmaster. Wanting to get a better sense of the town, the king decides to drop by the saloon. Inside, as the royal party enjoys their drinks, they overhear some drunk locals gossiping about a patient who died at a soon-to-be great healer's infirmary. Even though Raymond tried CPR for almost an hour, it wasn't enough. The townspeople talk about his low fees, but also whisper rumors of human experimentation. They say he's just like the other princes and describe how the people of Toila see all royals as nothing more than tools of power. Suddenly, a woman stands up to defend Ray. She points out that other healers wouldn't have even tried to save the man, but those 2 never gave up, not even after an hour. She adds that the healer even wept beside the body when he couldn't save him. According to modern medicine, a doctor is supposed to grow from the deaths of their patients. When Raymond broke the news to the man's wife and child, he was so heartbroken that he kept apologizing while sobbing uncontrollably. He truly never wants to go through that again. The woman defends Raymond with all her heart. She calls him an angel sent from heaven and a prince meant to serve the people. Her words encourage others to speak up too, sharing how the Shadow Prince hunts helped their families and friends while other healers only moved for a hefty price. The crowd begins to hail him as the Prince of Slums. Back home, Raymond unlocks the title, Helper of the Poor, and his reputation in V skyrockets. The title now comes with an extra effect, recognizing him as someone who supports the downtrodden but holds major influence among the people of Vey. As a reward, he earns 20 skill points and a bonus level up. Raymond beams with happiness, already dreaming of the fortune he might make in the near future. Meanwhile, the king and Garmin realize that Dr. Ray's popularity in Vey has completely exploded. Garmin had thought the guy wouldn't even survive basic living, but before he can say much, the king suddenly starts coughing badly, and it's only getting worse. Deciding it's time to return to the palace, they head out, but along the way they hear a woman crying for help. A bunch of lunatics are messing with her. King, fired up to teach them a lesson, draws his sword. It's already leaking a fierce sword aura. He dashes forward, takes down the thugs in an instant and frees the woman. He assures her that she's safe now. Just as he lowers his guard, the woman turns out to be no victim at all. She's a planted assassin. With a wicked grin, she whips out a knife glowing with an aura and lunges straight at the king. Odin manages to defend himself just in time from the girl he had rescued from the thugs, only to be shocked when he realizes she's actually an assassin who set him up. He swings his blade and slashes her shoulder, but before he can follow up, she whispers a smokescreen spell. At first, Odin assumes she's using it to escape without being seen. As the smoke thickens, he starts feeling something strange in his throat. He begins to suspect the smoke was no accident, especially if she somehow knew about his coughing illness. Suddenly she lunges at him from behind, but thanks to Odin's quick reflexes, she only manages to graze his arm before he turns around and drives his blade into her chest. He collapses with a heavy thud. Moments later, Garmin rushes over and asks if Odin is okay. Odin insists he's fine, but Garmin points to the skin around the wound turning purple, warning that it's poison. When Odin tries to shrug it off, Garmin stresses they need to treat it now before a small cut turns into losing the entire arm. Odin mentions that the castle's AA healer, Hellion, should be able to handle it, but Garmin quickly tells him that waiting until then might be too late. Despite acting calm in front of Garmin, Odin can clearly see the signs of necrosis and knows that if nothing is done, it'll likely result in having to amputate his arm. When Garmin suddenly suggests visiting Raymond's infirmary for emergency care, care. Odin reluctantly agrees. Two of them arrive at the soon-to-be great healer's infirmary. Both are wearing masks and hoods. When Raymond sees the blood on their masks, he panics, wondering if their guild members have been in some kind of fight with other guilds. Trying to hide his fear, he invites them inside to treat Odin's arm. Garmin quickly explains that the injury is poison-related and requires immediate attention. Raymond begins to suspect they might be criminals, but being a good doctor, he decides to move forward with the treatment. When he examines the cut and sees how serious it is, he asks if there are any other symptoms to note. Odin replies that he feels lightheaded, his pulse is uneven, and there's something familiar about his voice to the Shadow Prince. They describe the symptoms, and Dr. Ray explains the poison appears to be a mix of hemolysin and a neurotoxin. Odin doubts Dr. Ray is skilled enough to treat it, so he asks him to at least slow the poison's spread until he can find advanced care elsewhere. However, Raymond reassures him by saying he can treat it with white snake antivenom, since the poison is a blend of triple white snake venom and alpenrose extract. Impressed, Garmin questions Raymond's knowledge of the poison, noting that identifying such a mix usually takes much longer. Raymond explains he learned about this weapon during his apprenticeship and earned a grade S in herbology. After a moment of thought, Raymond says that simply giving the antivenom won't be enough, because the toxin has been strengthened with white snake venom. So he decides to maximize the effects, even though he knows they might struggle to accept it when they ask him about it. The Shadow Prince states that he'll need to inject the antivenom directly into Odin's veins, rather than having him drink it. Garmin quickly becomes defensive and refuses to allow it, calling the idea foolish. Garmin's reaction stems from the fact that syringes have never been used in Lepentina. He tries to intimidate Raymond by stressing how important Odin is. Odin cuts in and asks Raymond about the rumors surrounding his infirmary, claims that he uses patients as experiments. Odin steps closer to the Shadow Prince, threatening to show no mercy if the rumors turn out to be true. Feeling Odin's powerful aura, Raymond stumbles back in fear, wondering if Odin is a swordmaster. His heart of steel skill activates. Once he's no longer afraid of Odin, Garmin is puzzled by how Odin's aura seems to have no effect on Raymond. Meanwhile, Raymond smirks, thinking they're all crazy. Raymond decides to stand his ground and tries to convince them that his treatment is simply a well-practiced technique from ancient times. He takes Odin's hand and swears on his mother's surname Penin to prove his intentions are pure. After thinking it over carefully, Odin finally agrees to the treatment, so Raymond pulls out his syringe. When Odin questions it, the soon-to-be great healer explains that it's made by dwarves and is used to inject medicine directly into the bloodstream. After warning Odin about the sting of the needle, Raymond injects it. Once it's done, Garmin anxiously checks on Odin just as he's about to say something. Suddenly, Odin feels dizzy, which sends Raymond into a panic. He wonders if he made a mistake, since this was his first time using a syringe. To their surprise, Odin looks up and says the dizziness and headache are gone, and he feels much better than before. He wonders how the antidote worked so quickly, since it usually takes much longer. Raymond breathes a sigh of relief and gets excited about eating meat the next day. Odin then asks if his arm will heal on its own, and Dr. Ray tells him the necrosis will stop soon, and the skin will repair naturally without any unpleasant side effects. Odin realizes he made the right choice in coming to the Shadow Prince, or else he would have lost his arm. Feeling grateful for Raymond's healing of Princess Sophia earlier, he decides to reward him. Hansen arrives at the infirmary and is surprised to see the two patients who came in while he was away. Appreciating Raymond's work, Odin asks him what he would like as a reward. Without hesitation, Dr. Ray asks for money, which catches Odin off guard. Raymond then generously clarifies that healing patients is his job, so Odin just needs to pay for the treatment since it's no big deal. However, in his mind, the novice healer is plotting greedily, planning to demand a large sum since Odin seems to be a high-ranking guild member given his aura. After stating he'll only charge money, Raymond adds that it will be an expensive amount. Garmin asks in surprise if Raymond doesn't want anything else, since they could easily grant him anything with their authority. Dr. Ray, acting like a saint, says he's just a healer with a duty to treat his patients. Meanwhile, he secretly plans to demand a hefty sum that would be hard for them to pay. While Garmin admires his integrity, Odin casually asks for the amount. The Shadow Prince says 500 pesos, something he has never asked from any patient before. Garmin's eyes widen in surprise, and Hansen leans in to whisper that 500 pesos is what most people in VE earn in 6 months. But when Raymond stands his ground, Hansen just sighs and tells him to ask for coins instead of a check. Even though Raymond feels the price might be too high for them, Garmin actually thinks 500 is far too little for the antidote. He says anyone else would have asked for around 2,000 and considers Raymond a generous healer. Odin then curiously asks why Raymond is working so hard here, when he clearly has the skill to open his own infirmary in a better town. Glad he wasn't questioned about the fees, Raymond just smiles and says he has a bigger goal. Garmin is touched and assumes Raymond's goal is to heal people for the rest of his life. He can't believe how gracefully this random man has grown up. As Odin gets up to leave, he suddenly claims he doesn't have any money on him, which gives Raymond a mini heart attack, thinking they're about to walk away with free treatment. Instead, Odin hands him a ring. Raymond's eyes light up when he sees the fancy piece. As Hansen looks closer, he realizes it holds a mermaid's tear pearl, worth around 10,000 pina. Before leaving, Odin explains the ring is just a deposit. He hints that their small clinic will be very busy by the time he returns. Once Garmin and Odin are gone, the great healer and Hansen just stare at the ring, barely able to process it. Then they burst with excitement over finally having beef for dinner. Garmin wonders how Odin's illegitimate son managed to do what the princes could not. Odin orders him to investigate who was behind the assassination attempt. He suspects there is a spy inside the castle. One responsible for the attempt learns that Odin is perfectly fine and can't believe it, given how strong the poison was. He decides to try a different approach in the future, but wonders who the skillful healer was that saved Odin. The glowing sphere he speaks to suggests getting rid of the healer. The man refuses, saying no one can stop their next plan from succeeding. With another month to prepare, he decides to destroy the kingdom of Houston. Meanwhile, Hansen and Dr. Ray enjoy their beef dinner. They feel their immune system strengthen with every bite. Suddenly, loud knocking comes from their door. When Raymond opens it, big muscular guards confirm his identity. Raymond wonders why an underworld guild would show up and asks what they want. From behind the guards, Toms, a business owner from Langtrom, steps forward and introduces himself. Raymond quickly recognizes him as an autocrat from the entertainment district and head of the Darkblade Guild. Tom says he came to deliver a message and asks permission to come inside. Toms and his men walk in, and when he sees their meal, he calls it animal food because it's so low quality. He presses his finger against the plate. It shatters into pieces, leaving the great healer and Hansen stunned. Hansen quietly whispers to the Shadow Prince that Toms was once the top-ranked mana user and knight. Toms orders his men to throw away the cheap meat. They start slamming things around. Raymond doesn't understand why Toms is at their place. His facing the boar skill activates. He decides to meet them head-on by acting like them. He asks Toms directly what he's here for. Toms notices Raymond's confident attitude and realizes Dr. Ray is intimidated by him. Toms replies that he's just here to greet the hardworking healer in Vey and brought something for him. One of Tom's men steps forward and hands Raymond a small bag of gold. Hansen estimates it's around 1,000 pina. Dr. Ray, equally shocked, asks why he's receiving it. Tom smirks and calls it a reward for Raymond's hard work. Then he adds that he also has a small request. Raymond quickly realizes the request is the real reason for the visit and asks about it. Toms tells him in an authoritative voice not to heal any enemy of the Darkblade Guild. Raymond can't believe Toms is telling him not to treat people. Toms explains the damage Raymond has indirectly caused the guild and says he dislikes seeing his enemies healed while his own guild suffers. When Raymond tries to negotiate, Toms pulls out a dagger and throws it toward him. The blade strikes the wall just a few inches from his neck. Toms coldly states that in the Vey Quarter, even the king's men have no protection. He corners Raymond against the wall while unsheathing his sword. In a threatening tone, Toms warns that the only way to have a bright future is to obey him. Toms withdraws the sword from Raymond's neck. He bids him goodbye in an intimidating manner, hoping to meet again in the same friendly way. After they leave, the novice healer stands stunned while Hansen asks if he's okay. As Raymond cleans up, Hansen worries how they can stand up to such a dangerous guildmaster, knowing they could die if they disobey. Raymond thinks about learning a self-defense skill and opens his screen, but he realizes he needs 15 strength points and is 2 ranks short. He doesn't see how he can face Toms, who is already skilled in swordsmanship and mana. Even if he learns self-defense, he still won't be able to protect himself. While worrying about staying fair to his patients, the Shadow Prince suddenly receives a quest to resist the pressure and treat his patients fairly. As they anxiously debate what to do, someone starts pounding on their door. They hurry to open it and find 2 men carrying a third who appears to be the patient. Raymond asks what happened. One of the men explains that Toms, the Darkblade Guildmaster, did this to their friend for not paying the protection money on time as demanded. Great Healer and Hansen are shocked to learn the Darkblade Guildmaster caused the man's injuries, meaning they are now Toms's enemies and should avoid treating him to stay safe. The men lay the patient down and urgently beg Raymond to treat him. Healer Ray examines the man and finds a broken rib and punctured lungs. As he gets ready to start, Hansen nervously reminds him of Tom's warning, but the patient starts coughing up blood, so Raymond decides to ignore the threat and proceed. Raymond examines further and finds a faint heartbeat along with severe internal injuries, so he decides to first drain the internal blood. He calls for Hansen to get the surgical tools, but Hansen tries to warn him again about the danger from Toms. Raymond shouts at him to emphasize how serious the patient's condition is and tells him to grab the instruments quickly. After a while, Raymond walks out and tells the men that the patient will be fine soon. The men cry out in gratitude. Hansen calls Raymond aside to talk. He asks about the consequences of defying Tom's orders, and whether they should seek help from Kinsir and the Blue Moon Guild. Healer Ray replies that the Blue Moon Guild can't stand against Tom's and wonders if they should flee, but he is reminded of all the debt he owes. As he worries about what to do, his quest completion notification pops up, informing him of an upcoming reward. Raymond receives a hidden reward that allows him to upgrade any one of his skills to a grade for a single day. Right now, all of his skills are still at D grade. Suddenly, he gets 2 new quests. One is to keep treating his patients, and the other is to wipe out the entire Darkblade Guild. He can't understand why he's given such a quest when he's just a healer. He even considers running away, but that would get him caught by the healer lending group and turned into a slave. Stuck between impossible choices, Raymond starts thinking about using his reward to boost his magic skill, since a grade magic is something only top-ranked mages possess. With that, maybe he could stand a chance against the Darkblade Guildmaster. But the problem is, even if his magic skill gets boosted, he still doesn't have enough mana to properly cast even a D-grade spell. That's when he starts considering using the reward on another skill that could help him escape this mess. And suddenly, an idea strikes him. He rushes to the table and quickly begins writing a letter. He calls out to Hansen and asks if he can send the letter to Kinsir. Hansen looks confused as he watches Raymond scribbling and asks what's going on and what the letter is about. Raymond says he isn't going to run away, which takes Hansen by surprise. He immediately tries to convince Raymond how risky that choice is, reminding him that the Darkblade Guildmaster is a violent man. But Raymond calmly assures him he knows that very well and still chooses to stay. Hansen insists again, saying that treating patients is important, but it could put both of them in serious danger. Raymond finishes writing, puts the letter in an envelope, and tells Hansen to just trust him. He says he knows exactly what he's doing, hands the envelope to Hansen, and reminds him how important his role is, telling him to deliver the letter to Kinsir no matter what. Hansen nods and takes responsibility. Then he leaves without saying another word. Once Hansen is gone, Raymond decides it's time to use his temporary level enhancer reward on the skill called Heart of Steels. The moment he activates it, his determination shoots up to the maximum. He feels an intense surge of energy rushing through him, and suddenly all his fear disappears. With newfound confidence, Raymond walks straight into the Darkblade Guild. As expected, Tom's reacts with intimidation, but then he casually says he was just about to visit Raymond regarding a certain matter. Raymond knows exactly what he means. He's definitely planning to kill him for treating that patient. But now Raymond doesn't feel the slightest bit threatened. With his upgraded skill active, he stands tall and says he has something to say. Once Tom's gives him permission, he speaks. Raymond bows and offers an apology. This leaves Tom's and his men confused by his sudden change in behavior. After a short pause, Tom's asks why he did something he now regrets, and Dr. Ray promises not to repeat his mistakes. He says he has realized everything this time and wants to devote his loyalty to Tom's. He puts on an excited act and starts convincing Tom's about the benefits of having a healer by his side, especially one skilled enough to be recognized by the king. Tom's laughs at this soon-to-be great healer's offer, and questions why someone who used to work for the people of Vey is now offering his services to him. Healer Ray notices the guards around them. He leans in close to Tom's ear and whispers that his true motive is to make money. He says he couldn't land a proper job, so he ended up setting up shop in Vey. But now that he has found Tom's, he no longer wants to waste his life treating the poor. After living 23 years, Raymond has gotten really good at acting compliant. With his newly boosted skill, he can flatter Tom's even better, and he keeps pestering Tom's to accept the offer. He even offers to give him a free full-body checkup as a token of his thanks. He then explains how, using an ancient medical technique, he can detect and prevent future diseases through a detailed examination. After Tom's agrees, Raymond asks him to send his men away because the process is confidential. Tom's waves them off and lies down on a nearby couch. Raymond starts by examining his abdomen, then slowly moves up to his chest. Tom's looks a bit surprised when he sees the strange device Raymond pulls out. It is a stethoscope crafted by dwarves, so Raymond briefly explains how it works. While checking his chest, the Shadow Prince suddenly claims there is something unusual with Tom's heart. He unbuttons his shirt for a closer look. Seizing the perfect moment, Raymond places his hand over Tom's heart and activates his lightning skill. Thanks to the Shadow Prince's high intelligence, the magic strikes with full force, knocking Tom's out cold the moment he loses consciousness. Raymond receives his quest rewards and feels a surge of pride. He realizes he succeeded simply because he bowed earlier, and even though Tom's was known as the most violent and powerful man around, he still fell to a single shock aimed at his heart. Raymond pulls some rope out of his suitcase and ties Tom's up tightly, then decides to stay hidden until Kinsir arrives to back him up. He cracks the door open slightly and peeks out, thinking how much easier it will be to take down the rest of the Darkblade Guild now that their terrifying guildmaster is captured. Tom's was the reason the guild had such a strong grip, and being one of the best high-ranking mana users, his fall gave Raymond a major edge. After watching the hallway for a bit, Raymond turns around with suspicion, wondering if there is a hidden safe nearby. He thinks the feeling might come from his heart of steel being upgraded to a grade. Digging through Tom's coat, he finds a ring of keys and begins searching the room for a vault or hidden stash. After a bit of rummaging, he finally discovers a small chest tucked away. A wide smile spreads across his face as excitement fills him, feeling relieved he no longer has to fear the demon healer lenders. But when he opens the chest, he is completely thrown off by the sight of papers instead of money. Confused, he starts reading through them, and slowly realizes they are secret records of every crime Tom's has committed and every bribe he has taken from the nobles. As he keeps flipping through the documents, Tom suddenly wakes up and glares at him, demanding to know how he dared to fool him. Still tied up and unable to move, Tom seethes with rage. Dr. Ray, annoyed that Tom's is already conscious, typical knight behavior, tells him to stay down, even threatens him, feeling no fear thanks to his A-grade skill and the ropes keeping Tom's restrained. But to his shock, Tom suddenly channels mana into his hands and slices through the ropes using mana blades, freeing himself with ease, leaving Raymond frozen in disbelief. Tom's rises from the couch and walks toward him with fury in his eyes, while Dr. Ray, scrambling for words, awkwardly lies that the ropes were part of a special medical exam. But Tom's yells at him to shut up because he is about to kill him. In a panic, Raymond pulls up his stats bar, hoping for a miracle, and notices he has some unused points from leveling up. He quickly boosts his strength by 2, bringing it to 15, and purchases the self-defense skill, which temporarily jumps his strength to 25. And although he feels stronger than ever, it still is not enough as he faces the most powerful knight in the guild, and despite everything, it looks like he is about to be crushed. Tom's reaches out to kill Ray, but Ray squeezes his eyes shut and thinks about the life he still has not lived, a life full of riches and comfort. Refusing to give up, he remembers his heart of steel skill and grabs a wooden rod nearby. He swings it at Tom's, who does not take it seriously at first, but when the rod actually hits him, Tom's collapses on the floor. Raymond cannot believe what just happened. Right after, he starts receiving reward notifications for his bravery, one of which gives him a burst of strength when fighting someone stronger than himself. Seeing those messages, he becomes convinced that Tom's is truly down for the count. As he debates whether he should tie Tom's up again, a loud rumble echoes from outside the building. He thinks Kinsir might have arrived and peeks out, is stunned to see a massive crowd from the Blue Moon Guild gathered outside, yelling to take down the entire Darkblade Guild while calling Raymond a prince. Still confused, he checks his screen and discovers that he has been granted the title of Helper of the Poor. Meanwhile, an hour earlier, Hansen started having doubts about simply giving the letter to Kinsir and leaving Raymond alone in harm's way. Realizing how much Dr. Ray had done for the people of V, Hansen decides he cannot just look away. Instead, he shouts out to everyone nearby. He tells them that Dr. Ray went off to fight the Darkblade Guild all by himself, and he did it for their sake. As word gets around, the people begin to worry about Raymond's safety, and that is how they all ended up coming together to support him and save him. Hansen stands there in silence. He watches everything unfold and wonders what just happened. The people around him reassure him that they managed to rescue Raymond. Inside the vault, Ray gets a bit too curious and ends up accidentally injuring himself. Despite the pain, he can hear the worried voices of the crowd outside. He quickly calls out to calm them, letting everyone know that Tom's is now under his control. This news shocks everyone, including Hansen, who can't believe Raymond has already completed such a difficult mission. Raymond notices how calm and relieved everyone has become. As he holds the unconscious Tom's in his arms, he hears someone outside the window shouting his name in praise. The voice applauds his bravery, and soon more people join in, cheering loudly and celebrating his strength and courage. Raymond looks out the window, trying to say something, but the crowd thinks he is waving, and they burst into even louder cheers. They shout for their savior, Raymond. Amid all the excitement, a few people quietly wonder if it is even right to call him Prince because of his background, but most ignore that and continue praising him as a true hero as the crowd celebrates. A series of system prompts appear before Ray, telling him he has completed the quest, finished the mission, increased his reputation, and earned 50 experience points, which is just enough to level up. Inside the palace, a noble questions how a healer like Raymond could possibly take down the highest-ranking noble in the Bay region and end up being praised by so many. He asks how something like this could even happen. The woman speaking to him explains that Dr. Ray came up with a plan, saved the people from the rogue leader Tom's, and became a symbol of hope. She tells him that Tom's had the most mana in the entire region and was seen as incredibly powerful, yet Raymond still managed managed to defeat him. The noble is clearly impressed. She continues, saying that despite being exhausted and treated poorly, Raymond still risked his life to help others. The noble realizes he completely misjudged the great healer and declares that someone like him definitely deserves a reward. Then she drops an even bigger surprise, revealing that during the mission, Raymond also found a secret book filled with records of crimes committed by powerful noble leaders. The noble's eyes go wide as she explains that the book includes names of those who worked with the Dark Guild and others who took bribes to commit horrible acts. He nervously asks if she is sure, and she confirms it, adding that even the names of Bay Region's own administrators are in the book. Alarmed, he warns that if this information gets out, it could bring down the entire political system. Meanwhile, down in the palace's underground prison, Tom sits alone, full of regret, cursing himself for being taken down by a healer. He vows that next time he won't let Raymond off so easily. As he stews in frustration, 3 armored men enter his cell. At first, Tom smirks, thinking they are nobles coming to rescue him. But his face quickly changes when he realizes they are palace guards getting ready to interrogate him. Panicked, Tom warns that if any nobles find out about this, there will be serious consequences. But one of the guards calmly tells him that all the nobles have already been arrested and are currently being interrogated. Under intense torture, Tom's eventually breaks and confesses everything about his involvement with the Dark Guild and the crimes committed by the noble leaders. As a result, the Dark Guild is officially dismantled. Raymond becomes known as the savior of the slums, and his level and influence in the Bay region skyrocket. He reflects on how far he has come, now regarded as a true hero by the people. Later, Hansen finds him and offers a homemade beef dish, expressing admiration for how the Shadow Prince has risked his life day and night to protect others. Raymond jokes, asking him to just cook the meat properly. Hansen insists it is the least he can do for a hero like him. Healer Ray quietly notices how Hansen seems to be slowly distancing himself, maybe out of awe or uncertainty. When Hansen asks how the meat tastes, Healer Ray tells him it is delicious, eating with genuine delight. He thinks about how even people from distant regions now recognize him and want to meet him. When Hansen asks what prize he will request for his accomplishments, Raymond answers immediately that he wants money, nothing else. Next morning, the great healer and his group board a carriage headed for the palace. He reflects on how the day has finally come. He notices that even the servants now speak to him with respect. Upon arrival, the palace grounds are packed with people cheering his name. People raise their hands and declare that he is now Sir Ray, ready to cleanse the land of corruption. As he prepares to say his farewells, something suddenly catches his eye and makes him raise his hand. Raymond's attention is drawn to a woman in torn clothes sitting on the ground with a dying baby in her lap. The child is clearly suffering from malnutrition. Dr. Ray's heart sinks as he looks at them. He tries to hold himself together, realizing that as a mere healer, he feels powerless to change the harsh lives of the people in the slums. He looks at the woman with deep sympathy, thinking about how most people in the slums live in terrible conditions, without even the basics they need. Meanwhile, the rich and powerful do absolutely nothing to lend a hand. Sitting there in silence, he clenches his fists tightly as feelings of frustration and helplessness wash over him. Right at that moment, a notification appears before him. It's a bonus quest alert telling him he needs to complete a task with a difficulty level of 0. As Raymond arrives at the palace, he hears people whispering about him behind his back. Their words are harsh and cruel, calling him worthless and evil-minded. They mock the idea that someone like him, an illegitimate child, could ever achieve anything meaningful. Their biting remarks suggest he belongs in the slums, rather than among the nobles of the palace. He listens in silence, but anger begins to boil inside him. He promises himself that one day he will become the greatest healer in the world and return to face them, proving he is worth far more than they say. As he moves through the palace hallways, he spots 2 young men bowing gratefully in front of Princess Sophia, and he pauses to admire her beauty. But soon her expression turns stern and commanding as she scolds them for being idle instead of working toward their assigned goals. Her fierce manner sends them scrambling away in fear. Raymond approaches and greets her politely, and she replies that their meeting was not planned. She just happened to be passing through. He notices how she stresses that their encounter was purely by chance. Just as they are about to say goodbye, she turns and asks him what reward he plans to request at tonight's ceremony. Raymond admits that he hasn't really thought about it yet. She tells him to choose carefully before walking away. Ray is left feeling both confused and under pressure. He makes his way toward the palace room, the room where Prime Minister Garment, along with the 2nd and 3rd princes, are already waiting, and as he enters, he scolds himself for not knowing they would be there. Feeling overwhelmed, he bows and pays his respect. 2 princes watch him coldly, their faces showing nothing. The 3rd prince, Remerton, burns with envy, ranting inside about how the Shadow Prince suddenly won the hearts of the slum people, something they had tried and failed to do for years. His face tightens with anger as he stares at Raymond. The 2nd prince Prince Karen smirks and asks Remerton why he's so jealous of someone like Raymond. The two brothers mock Raymond for his low birth and humble background. They make crude jokes, comparing him to a little puppy they plan to use later for their own gain. They keep whispering, clearly underestimating the great healer and treating him like someone easy to control. Soon, the king calls the Shadow Prince forward. Raymond steps up and follows the instructions. He is then asked the important question: what reward does he want for facing such danger and emerging victorious? For a moment, his mind races. He knows the answer has always been money. That was his dream, his way to gain control in a world that constantly looked down on him. But then something shifts inside him. He remembers Sophia's words, urging him to choose wisely. A single conversation plays over and over in his mind. His thoughts drift to the starving woman and her dying child, the faces of the people he wants to protect. A realization dawns on him. This is his chance to make a real difference. His eyes light up with purpose as he looks up, ready to ask not just for himself, but for something much bigger, a chance to change the slums forever. Just as Raymond is about to ask for his reward, his thoughts drift back to the slums, the filth, the suffering, and the helplessness he sees every day. He regrets how powerless he has felt for so long. Looking at the king, he steels himself and states what he truly desires. At that moment, a prompt appears before him, saying he has earned the achievement of a good doctor. Doctors treat patients, but good doctors change the world for them. He reflects on how someone like him could ever be considered a great healer. He hesitates but finally requests funds not for himself, but from the Dark Guild's seized treasury to improve the Bay region, solely for the people. King looks at him with a puzzled expression and lets out a light sigh. The two princes smirk, whispering that they expected nothing better from someone of such low birth. Of course he would ask for money. Raymond looks at his hands, clenches them, and thinks again. Then he clarifies that he does not seek the money for himself, but for the people of the Bay. He has it all planned. He intends to change the fate of the people and rebuild his own life in the process. He knows those outside the slums will never understand, but those within will. Building a reputation is the best way to market anyone, and reputation in the slums matters most. A new prompt appears, recognizing his intention. He smiles to himself, confident he has made the right choice. When he finishes speaking, the king asks him a question. Raymond feels nervous but answers. The king inquires how he plans to use the money for the Bay region. Raymond wonders why the king even asks, as if he doesn't already know the answer. But he gathers his thoughts and explains that he wants to work for society by cleaning the slums' filthy streets. He wants to purify the polluted water and create conditions that prevent disease and infection from spreading. He believes this will make the slums a better, healthier place. The Prime Minister quietly observes, reflecting on how the king has long neglected the slums' condition, while none of the princes ever made any real progress in their development efforts. Now the king is asking Raymond how to use this money. The room falls silent as the significance of the moment sinks in. The Prime Minister wonders if the king is testing whether Raymond has the qualities of a future leader. Before Raymond can say anything more, the third prince suddenly speaks up, asking for permission to take charge of the slum's development. He reminds the court that he once tried to advocate for the slum, but was rejected by the king and lost favor. He shares his improvement ideas, hoping this time the people might see the royal family in a better light and feel more loyal. The two elder princes whisper to each other, clearly unhappy. Just then, the king turns back to the Shadow Prince and asks him for more ideas. The palace audience murmurs, questioning how a mere commoner could help the Bay region when even noble geniuses have failed. Raymond steps forward and talks about environmental improvements. The king looks disappointed. This makes Raymond second guess himself. He wonders if the king expects something different. Holding his ground, he explains that true improvement isn't just about cleaning filth. They need cleaner roads that attract traders and boost business. The slums can become a functional, developed area like any other city. Prime Minister challenges him, asking how the Shadow Prince can be so certain that business will grow. Raymond responds that while current conditions aren't ideal, the solution lies in building a shortcut connecting the slums to major trade routes. If secured properly, merchants will use it, increasing traffic and trade. He explains that the Langtrum, currently a hub for illegal activity, could be transformed. With help from the crown, could be cleaned up and rebranded. Nobles seek entertainment, and with proper reforms, the slum could become a social and commercial hotspot. Not only would it host visitors at night, but it could also become a space for families and traders alike. As Raymond finishes, the Prime Minister reflects on how this would improve commerce and create a powerful trademark for the region's economy. He believes the king will appreciate such a forward-thinking response. The king nods and asks Raymond to discuss these suggestions with the other administrators. Raymond was taken aback by the king's immediate action on his suggestion. It felt so out of the ordinary. He looked at the king and a strange feeling welled up inside him. He almost blurted out the word father, surprised by the unfamiliar warmth of being recognized. Finally, the king says that Dr. Ray never asked for anything for himself, and for that, he will receive a reward. Raymond stands speechless, shocked. The king steps closer to the Shadow Prince, raising his sword in the air before, gently placing it on Raymond's shoulder, granting him the title of baronet. Though it's the lowest noble rank, it still places him among the nobles. He feels honored and thanks the king. The king then brings the sword closer to the Shadow Prince's face and asks what family name he would like to carry, anything he desires. Without hesitation, Dr. Ray replies that he would like to be called Raymond. The king nods solemnly and takes an oath, proclaiming that from now on, Raymond shall be called Raymond, swearing by Odin himself, as Raymond is his son. The name Raymond is his mother's surname, and it now becomes part of the noble records. Somewhere far away, a man watches the ceremony through a magic ball. He questions how an illegitimate child can become a baronet. Such a thing is unheard of. And yet, as the son of Odin, Raymond not only receives noble status, but is also given an evaluation of a higher rank. The man is stunned by Raymond's levels and achievements, left speechless by the results he sees. His expression turns dark. He reconsiders his plans, thinking to himself that Dr. Ray is more than just a skilled fighter. He is becoming a symbol. The man instructs his companions to handle any clues that may have been left behind. Their sinister plan is just beginning. The hints lie in the innocents who were killed, their silence hiding secrets. One of the men replies with a sly smile, saying that the traces are long gone. He lifts a wine glass and, with hatred dripping from every word, complains about how irritating Raymond's eye color is. Emerald green, the symbol of the royal family. That color haunts him. Meanwhile, in the slums, people cheer and praise Raymond. They say that not even the heavens could have produced a man like him. He is like an angel, saving lives and transforming their fate. A prompt appears before Raymond. He has reached a bonus level. More people begin to know his name and more voices start talking about him. His kindness moves people to tears. His reputation rises, his levels increase, and his titles begin to improve. He is becoming known as the savior of the slums. Raymond smiles, filled with happiness. He turns to Hansen and asks who he is. Hansen smiles back and replies that he is a Baronet Pennon. Raymond asks him again, savoring the sound. Hansen repeats with pride, Baronet Pennon. Raymond cannot stop smiling. He reminds himself that he is a noble now, a baronet. He is no longer just a slum-born child. Looking at his current level, Raymond tells Hansen how close he is to another upgrade. With just a little more effort, he knows he will be promoted again. The two walk away with Hansen cheering for Raymond and Dr. Ray filled with motivation. Elsewhere, at the Prime Minister's office, Rao Kaplan arrives. He is the youngest top scorer from the Martial Arts Academy, a noble by birth, and a member of a first-class family known for their wealth and influence. He can afford anything he desires. Sitting across from the Prime Minister, he proudly starts listing everything he has accomplished. After listening carefully, the Prime Minister gives him unexpected advice. He should ask Ray for help, since no one knows the Bay region better. Rao Kaplan is taken aback, wondering how someone of his noble rank is supposed to speak with an illegitimate child like Ray, let alone work alongside him, and the mere thought unsettles him. But almost immediately he stops himself. He scolds his own thinking, realizing that a person should not be judged by their background. He decides to see the truth for himself, to discover who Raymond truly is with his own eyes, without letting bloodline or status influence him. He arrives at the Bay region in a carriage. He takes in the atmosphere with a careful look. He recalls how the Bay used to be seen as a dark and dangerous place, and he notices how much lighter the mood feels now compared to before. The carriage driver looks over at him. He turns his head and thanks him, calling him Prince. Rao Kaplan smirks and asks what prince. The writer quickly apologizes for using that title, then tells him about Ray, the prince and savior of the slums. Rao Kaplan thinks to himself, how can someone like him change so much? The writer begins recounting all the times Raymond saved them from danger and gave the slums a fresh start. Rao Kaplan's face darkens, clearly feeling tense. He angrily stops the carriage and steps onto the road, while the driver keeps praising Raymond's greatness. But Rao Kaplan cannot take it anymore. He looks around with a harsh, fiery glare. He reminds himself of all the times people have praised Ray, saying what a good person he is, how he has saved so many lives and brought so much goodness to the Republic of Slums. Rao Kaplan thinks that this much praise cannot be real, no one can be that perfect, but the driver just keeps going on about the prince, and Rao Kaplan is certain that this is not Ray's true face, he must be faking it. Rao Kaplan is confused, and if Raymond is truly that kind, he must be a saint. Rao Kaplan goes to meet Ray, who is busy with his work. Standing confidently at the doorway, Rao Kaplan introduces himself as the new administrator of the Bay region. Killer Ray, focused on his tasks, listens but politely declines to talk, saying he is too busy. Meanwhile, Raymond thinks to himself that Rao Kaplan looks suspicious and has likely come to pick a fight, something he has no interest in. He tries to act tough and unbothered by the Kaplans and Rao Kaplan. Rao Kaplan sits down while Raymond carries on with his work. Watching Ray, Rao Kaplan thinks to himself that Dr. Ray seems quite friendly, unlike any healer he's encountered before. Their eyes meet, and Rao Kaplan is utterly taken aback. He suspects Dr. Ray must be putting on a kind act, surely hiding something sinister inside. Is it money he wants, or fame, or is he just building a false image? Raymond pauses, finishes up, and smiles at the patient. He figures the friendlier he acts, the more his reputation will grow, and the more money he'll make. Once the administrator leaves, Raymond feels a wave of relief. Later, Rao Kaplan thinks to himself that Dr. Ray hasn't done anything wrong yet, so there's nothing to charge him with. Still, he decides to keep a clutch on him. Not long after, there's a rapid knock at the door. Hansen hurries to answer and finds an unconscious man in need of urgent care. Raymond is called over. The man, a stranger, had collapsed out of nowhere. Future great healer begins his examination. He discovers the man is in a coma, his brain fully shut down. He is no longer alive. The person who brought him in starts crying, confronting the Shadow Prince in desperation. Dr. Ray feels a strange sensation he has never experienced before. He asks about the patient's final activities, trying to understand what went wrong. Using his healing abilities, he finds internal bleeding in the man's head, which ultimately caused his death. 3 days later, Hansen rushes to the Shadow Prince with urgent news. He reports that someone else has died too. Hansen tells Raymond the woman died in the same way as the man in the alley 3 days ago. Confused, Dr. Ray wonders how something could spread so easily through blood cells, causing all the platelets to burst. He realizes this is not just a disease, but a fast-moving virus. He worries about how rumors will explode once people find out. Meanwhile, panic rises in the slums as word spreads that the same thing has happened again. People talk about how much blood the woman lost. Rao Kaplan seizes the chance to create a platform for himself. After knocking on a door, he reassures the crowd that as the new administrator, he will definitely solve the mystery. The crowd murmurs, with some voices scattered. A few doubt Rao Kaplan's ability because he's too young. He tries to calm them down, but the shouting only grows louder. Then a voice praises Raymond, saying he saved them fearlessly. Soon the crowd starts chanting his name. Inside, Raymond panics, holding his head. He wonders what to do to stop the deadly virus. A prompt appears, telling him he has a mission to fight the contagion. He thinks it over and walks out of his house, deciding to act, though he also considers the money and rewards if he succeeds. As he steps outside, he sees Rao Kaplan staring with disgust. Rao Kaplan tells Raymond he can't fool him. He accuses Raymond of doing nothing while people are dying. Rao Kaplan says he'll help the people himself. He slams the door shut. Raymond stands silently, thinking maybe Rao Kaplan should handle it. But then he remembers Rao Kaplan doesn't know epidemiology. Only he does. Still, his degree alone may not be enough. Raymond decides to go out again and tells the people he's taking charge. Outside, he sees Rao Kaplan already writing public notices with advice. Raymond goes back inside and calls Hansen for help. He orders him to get every book on the subject and starts working. He also asks Hansen to list all the do's and don'ts during a contagion. Raymond reads all night, from dusk till dawn. When he gets tired, he tells himself it's still not enough without knowing the source. His first suspicion falls on the semi-demons living across the Bay region. They look human but are half-devil creatures, evil and bloodthirsty. Starts connecting the dots but finds no solid clues. He keeps working, pushing through exhaustion, searching for an answer. The next morning, Raymond is at his counter when someone knocks hard and calls his name. Raymond answers. The man asks if Raymond knows him. The man panics, saying he's from the Chiopalan house, and Rao Kaplan suddenly collapsed. Raymond stands up in shock. They rush to Rao Kaplan's place. On the way, the Chiopalan house manager explains the household is in debt and Rao Kaplan is under heavy pressure. Raymond realizes that even though Rao Kaplan comes from wealth, he faces similar struggles. When they arrive, Raymond checks on Rao Kaplan and tells everyone he hasn't caught the virus. Since he worked closely with Bay region people, it might be another illness. Rao Kaplan wakes up and throws his pillow at his soon-to-be great healer, refusing help. Raymond feels embarrassed and wonders if he should leave. After a while, the manager informs Rao Kaplan they've been asked for 2,000 penis. He doesn't get treatment, he'll die like the others. Still, Rao Kaplan's ego remains high. He says he won't accept help from a liar like Raymond. Raymond interrupts, asking them not to pay him like that. He wants something else from them, not money. He approaches Rao Kaplan's bed, holds his hand, and asks why Rao Kaplan always picks fights with him. Does Rao Kaplan really think he's a liar who treats people just for money? He tells Rao Kaplan there's nothing personal. As a patient, Rao Kaplan is his first priority. Confused, Rao Kaplan asks why Raymond is so sincere about his safety. Raymond cleverly wins his heart with pure intentions. The house help asks Rao Kaplan why he's being so mean when Raymond is here out of goodwill. Rao Kaplan agrees. After the argument, the soon-to-be great healer explains how the virus works. He says he has a cure and will try his best to save the region's people. He tells Rao Kaplan he will now inject someone else's blood into his bloodstream. Rao Kaplan refuses, but Raymond insists there's no other way. Raymond convinces him by saying he'll inject the blood into himself first. If nothing bad happens, then he'll use the cure on Rao Kaplan. He adds that if it works, they owe him something valuable. He asks for the blood of a perfectly healthy person. The manager steps forward, offering his own blood with full dedication. The soon-to-be great healer explains how he will transfer blood from one person to another, carefully dividing it into test tubes, testing it, and trying to eliminate the expired blood in their veins. He starts using his magic by buying magic points and leveling up his status. He looks at his hand, pushing himself as hard as he can. With each step, he unlocks spells, his level rises, and his qualities improve. The prompts shift into mana, and he becomes a mana holder. His mana holder pace increases. He feels himself being enlightened by the study of mana. He activates his mana vein, not sure what's happening, as his blood vessels throb with mana buildup, and his blood begins to change. His abilities and senses grow sharper. He tries to locate the mana vessel in his blood, feeling the tension build. He uses his mana points to understand the mana ratio and realizes it has increased. His body feels like it's overflowing with power. He casts his wine magic, realizing that even the smallest bit of drained mana could destroy everything. Slowly, he focuses on tiny areas and gradually manages to control the magic. He successfully separates the blood into 3 parts: white blood cells, plasma, and pure red blood cells. A smile spreads across his face at the outcome. He feels proud of what he's achieved and knows he can now cure Rao Kaplan. Without delay, he picks up the blood and heads straight over to him. A few days later, they talk about how quickly Rao Kaplan has recovered and that he's no longer in any danger. Raymond grins to himself, thinking it's finally time for his reward. Rao Kaplan bows and thanks Ray, and Dr. Ray teases him, asking if he could speak up since he can barely hear him. Clearly annoyed, Rao Kaplan repeats himself again. Later, Rao Kaplan asks what kind of reward he wants. Without a hint of a smile, Raymond says he just wants to be treated as a superior, especially since Rao Kaplan disliked him so much before. That was his only request. Rao Kaplan glares at this soon-to-be great healer, annoyed and wondering if this is really what Raymond wants. Before Rao Kaplan can speak, Raymond cuts in, saying he's just a healer and healers don't expect payment from patients. He gazes at Rao Kaplan with the purest look in his eyes. Rao Kaplan starts to wonder, is he really this kind? Could he be some sort of saint? Meanwhile, the novice healer is thinking to himself, yes, just like that. I'll draw Rao Kaplan in and climb my way up. With the support of chiefs like him, my reputation will grow. His innocent eyes deceive Rao Kaplan once again. Now Rao Kaplan thinks he can't be that nice. He must be pretending just to use people. Watching him, Hansen asks if he truly wants nothing in return for saving Rao Kaplan. Finally, Rao Kaplan believes that no healer is kinder than Raymond. He bows once more and apologizes for every time he picked on him. Healer Ray smirks internally and thinks got him. His levels are rising quickly, and he can feel he's about to reach the next milestone in medical history. A few days later, with Rao Kaplan's name backing him, the great healer and his team help everyone in the Bay region. The deaths finally stop. They begin blood transfusions, and Raymond's healing powers and reputation both grow. Meanwhile, the cult that created the disease gathers in secret, furious that their virus failed to spread. This was supposed to be the end of Ray, but now he's using another ancient technique. Cloaked in robes, they chant around a crystal ball, cursing the great healer and saying he should be dead. They debate whether it's time to get rid of him for good. Back in Houston, the great healer and Rao Kaplan clean and prepare a space for more patients. Raymond starts thinking about how the disease spreads and wonders where it came from, realizing it destroyed blood platelets quickly. Then it hits him, rats must be the cause. They are known carriers of plague-like diseases, but there are no rats in Houston. They are only found in Milkia, where the past plague started. He asks Rao Kaplan where he was when he first got sick. Rao Kaplan mentions seeing a rat with white and black stripes on its back. That's when Raymond solves the case. The rats are the carriers. Someone must have released them on purpose. Since Houston has no natural rats, it had to be a smuggler. Only a few merchants travel between regions, and one of them must have brought the rats in. He tells Rao Kaplan about his theory. He orders him to go to the palace and inform the king, saying the king might be able to help. Raymond also warns him not to mention that the theory came from him. Too many people in the palace are jealous of him, and besides, he's still on the wanted list. Instead, he wants Rao Kaplan to say that he discovered it himself, and now needs the king's help. Rao Kaplan, thinking about Raymond's prior intentions, reflects, how could I have ever doubted someone like him? He finally agrees and says he will carry out his sir's order. A few days later, Rao Kaplan reaches the palace and tells the king the full story of what happened in the Bay region. The king asks him for details about the disease. Rao Kaplan replies that he is completely sure of what he's saying, thinking to himself that he's finally having a proper conversation with the king. The royal committee murmurs among themselves, questioning how this could happen and whether others might still be at risk. The king wanted to quarantine the capital, but asked Rao Kaplan how many had died. Rao Kaplan said only 2. The king was surprised, thinking it was a severe disease. Rao Kaplan replied that Raymond found a cure, even though he felt bad for taking credit. The king then wondered if Raymond had also identified the disease, recalling his recent success and marveling at his city-saving talent. Rao Kaplan boldly stated that Raymond had not only figured out the disease but also created the cure. Prime Minister Garmin silently congratulated himself for bringing those two together. Then the 4th prince steps forward, trying to take control of the situation, saying he will personally take care of every rat in the Bay region. He's thinking about how much he hates Ray, especially after Raymond took down the Dark Guild when his own people were involved. Wanting to gain recognition, the prince asks the king for permission to lead the effort. The king agrees, but Garmin raises a question, asking if the prince's soldiers are even capable of handling the job. Soon enough, the soldiers prove useless. They fail to act quickly, and the 4th prince ends up yelling at them. People of the Bay start complaining, saying the soldiers are doing nothing but damaging their property. They notice that the soldiers have the tools to catch the rats, but still can't catch a single one. Raymond thinks to himself that if the soldiers take any longer, the rat population will explode, and his clinic simply won't be able to manage the overwhelming demand. Feeling uneasy, he goes to his kitchen and begins preparing a dish he calls pastime pie. It's basically cheese with the most revolting smell imaginable, potent enough to draw in rats. He carefully stirred in the rat poison, then turned his attention to making the bait absolutely irresistible to the rodents. As he worked, his skills improved once more, allowing him to cook incredible food and expertly enhance flavors. He let out a sigh, realizing he was always the one saving others. He quietly moved closer to the 4th prince, who was holding a pot pie. Raymond spotted a rat and asked why Raymond was there. Just then, the prince set the pie down. Immediately, a swarm of rats rushed over and began feasting on it. Raymond shoves him aside and quickly places another pie on the ground. One by one, all the rats scurry out into the open, right in front of the stunned soldiers. The people of the Bay region saw this as a miracle and cheered for their prince, shouting that he had saved them once again. But the 4th prince was furious and ordered them not to praise him or speak his name. The crowd quickly apologized and shifted their praise to Baronet Pennant instead. Even the soldiers who had opposed their commander began to side with Ray. People started saying that Settle's approach was completely useless, that the cult schemes had failed once more, forcing them to retreat for the time being. One soldier thought Prince Settle's method was practically pointless, especially after seeing him order the honorable royal guards to hunt rats with swords in the first place, which made no sense. Besides that, he felt Raymond's method was far simpler and much more effective. He keeps watching Ray, uncertain what the man is actually doing. Deep inside, he feels a sense of admiration, even a little pride watching the Shadow Prince, someone who clearly never worked a day in his life or trained in swordsmanship, handle a blade with such control. His stance and posture definitely look untrained, but there's something oddly solid about it. He actually resembles a real knight. Eventually, the soldier lets Raymond know that he'll receive a reward from the palace, and this news makes Raymond light up with excitement. Inside the palace, novice healer silently curses Rao Kaplan under his breath for mentioning his name, even though he clearly stated he wanted to stay out of the spotlight and avoid getting tangled in any political trouble. He has no interest in glory. Meanwhile, the king asks Raymond what kind of reward he would like. The soon-to-be great healer figures his time is up, so he decides to simply ask for money and get it over with. The king is a bit taken aback by such a modest request in exchange for such a huge achievement. The soon-to-be great healer explains that simple payment is enough. He only did what was required of him as a healer. Deep down, he knows that asking for anything greater would only draw more attention, which he definitely wants to avoid. The money will be enough to settle his debts, especially since his last so-called reward only increased them when he had to help Vay's people. The old hag is amazed that a jerk like him would make such a humble choice, and wonders if his royal bloodline might have something to do with it. The king ends up granting Raymond's request, rewarding him exactly as he asked. Garmin watches all of this, seeing Ray as a selfless healer who chose the simplest reward possible. Then Garmin steps in and tells the king that money isn't enough, suggesting they give Raymond the legendary Staff of Light. That definitely catches Raymond off guard, never expecting they would give him something as prestigious as the Staff of Light. The Staff of Light is a healing relic dating back 100 years, once used by the great ex-healer Alex. It's not just a tool, it's a symbol of a healer's pride, something so grand it's usually passed down as a family heirloom. It's the kind of reward worthy of someone who stopped a deadly virus from overtaking the capital. The king fully agrees with the idea. Dr. Ray, on the other hand, has mixed feelings. With With his terrible healing grade, he wonders if he even deserves it. Still, the king also awards him 10,000 pina, which makes Raymond very happy. It's not enough to wipe out all his debts, but it's a good chunk that makes him feel much lighter. Right then, he checks his quest rewards and sees he has reached level 40. Just as he's processing all of that, the king suddenly asks if he has anything more to discuss, which throws Raymond off a little. Both the king and Garmin still don't understand how a virus from Michelin almost managed to spread in Vey. Raymond realizes the king is thinking exactly the same thing he is. Raymond decides it's time to reveal everything and step back from the mess. So he comes clean and admits he suspects someone intentionally spread the virus in the capital. He debunks Garmin's theory about the merchants being behind it and leaves the conspiracy matters to the people in power, while he focuses on earning a fortune by healing people. But then the king asks him a sharp question, as if he already knows Raymond has a specific person in mind. Raymond thinks it must be someone who would have gained a lot if the whole plan had succeeded, with the capital nearly thrown into chaos. He believes the king is thinking the same way, that the real culprit is someone who stood to benefit the most. Not to mention, this person might have serious influence, or be clever enough to pull off transporting a virus from far away without getting caught. The king takes all of this into consideration, then in a calm but clear voice, tells Raymond that his efforts are worthy of his gratitude on behalf of Houston. Raymond's eyes widened in shock as he received the highest honor possible. Gratitude from the king is truly a rare thing. He bowed deeply to thank him, feeling emotional for the first time ever when receiving his father's appreciation. Afterward, Raymond couldn't quite understand why he was feeling so overwhelmed. He told himself not to take it too seriously, yet he still made a solid plan to set aside 500 pina for some juicy beef. For curing the unknown disease, his quest reward unlocked, granting him 20 skill points and pushing his level to 40. From now on, he is officially a senior resident, with boosts to his surgery skill and general medicine. He also gained access to the internal medicine skill. When asked, the king found Raymond's ideas quite reasonable. That made Garmin realize that Dr. Ray's talents might go far beyond healing. He had always thought Raymond's ideas about reforming Vey were good, but now he sees Ray as more knowledgeable than most decent officials. What surprised Garmin even more was the growing thought that the king might see Ray as more than just a subject, perhaps even as a son. Garmin replied that only one place has the vicious power to send a virus and cause chaos in the kingdom. Just thinking about it sends chills down his spine. The kingdom of Droton, the hostile state of Houston. The war has been going on for 100 years now, which makes them the most obvious suspect, especially after the assassination attempt on the king. The king decided to keep this information restricted until more solid evidence appears. Meanwhile, at Maple Infirmary in Rim Quarter, rumors are spreading like wildfire about how the Shadow Prince managed to defeat the plague across the capital. No one can believe that the same guy who wasted 5 years at Belland Infirmary is the one who pulled this off and even received the Staff of Light. The big shots at Maple can't accept that the legendary healer Alex's staff is now in the hands of someone they call a bastard and a fake healer. To make matters worse, V is right next to Maple, and their reputation is now on the line. Lady Christine is furious that their meetings have turned into slander-filled gossip sessions. Lady Christine Delavan, daughter of one of Houston's 3 dukes, is one of Maple's top healers with her grade B+ healing ability. She's tired of hearing no one dare mention Baronet Pennon's name openly, so she walks out to treat her patient. She has no interest in sitting around with those whiny jerks, but her genuine curiosity in medical science is real, and she plans to confront him for the sake of her patient. Over at Maple, the healers are having a hard time swallowing the success of the soon-to-be great healer. However, with the king's approval backing him, there's not much they can do. Baron Canton, a grade C healer and director of Maple Infirmary, sees a different opportunity. He believes that Dr. Ray's desertification might be the perfect tool to bring him down. With compulsory education coming up for all new healers, they are already scheming to make Raymond fail. In the minds of Maple's healers, they've seen how a grade C healer like Canton took the director's seat by playing political games, using his influence like a monopoly. Anyone who clashed with him conveniently disappeared from Rim Quarter. Baron Canton enjoys the fear he inspires, and he knows that if Ray keeps climbing the ladder of success, things could become difficult for him. Now that Canton has been put in charge of this year's compulsory education, he plans to simply make Raymond fail, and honestly, everyone in the room seems to love the idea. At Ray's infirmary in Vey, Rao Kaplan spots him receiving a notice for the compulsory education test meant for new healers. The guy really has no choice but to attend, since everyone under grade B is required to take it. Hansen bursts in like a flash, warning Raymond not to go. He says he talked to someone from Maple Infirmary and found out they're scheming to make Ray fail. That's all Rao Kaplan needs to hear to get fired up, already certain that Baron Canton is pulling the strings. But Raymond stays cool and confident, saying it's just a simple class and he's far from a beginner now. His calm attitude lifts both Rao Kaplan and Hansen's spirits as well. After all, the guy is a level 40 senior resident with 110 experience points, 225 skill points, and a man of 7. Not to mention he has a wide range of academic skills under his belt, including surgery at grade C, internal medicine at grade D, general medicine at grade B, beginner medicine at grade B, herbology at grade S, pathology at grade A, and alchemy at grade D. Leveling up to senior residency has boosted his growth rate in both knowledge and surgical skills, along with his academic progress. The surgeon's experience is a valuable perk that adds +3 every time he performs surgery. The more knowledge he gains, the more his stats rise. With his level of precision and experience, grade C and D healers don't stand a chance. That's why he feels confident about standing out among the lower grade healers. His victory is almost guaranteed. The Shadow Prince makes it clear that he's aiming for the top score. Just then his next quest loads up, and it's titled Acing the Mandatory Tests. The condition is to go for top scores to earn a bonus level up, 15 skill points, and even push the public to reconsider the value of medical science. But the real reason behind Ray's motivation is the prize of 1,000 pina awarded to the top student of the year. Rao Kaplan and Hansen can't handle how the Shadow Prince suddenly lights up, all fired up by the thought of buying meat. Meanwhile, Hansen starts feeling guilty for ever doubting him, realizing that Raymond's true goal all along has been to revolutionize healing for the sake of the sick. Now he's fired up too. Rao Kaplan, on the other hand, believes Raymond is aiming to break those stubborn old healers and their outdated beliefs. Moreover, Rao Kaplan admits he used to suspect Raymond of being a greedy bastard, but now he's seriously wondering if Raymond's actually chasing money or something else. That comment stings Raymond a little, but before he can say anything, Rao Kaplan shakes his hand to apologize for thinking he was materialistic. From that moment on, they both label Raymond as the most honorable man in the world. Dr. Ray, completely clueless about the emotional drama unfolding, is just thinking about how good the meat will taste once he gets the prize money. Hansen, fully convinced our doc's going to win, even plans to order early, and since Ray's always been too generous, he invites Rao Kaplan to join the upcoming feast, knowing Rao Kaplan's measly pay wouldn't let him enjoy a decent meal otherwise. With that, his two supportive lads wish him all the best. Later at the St. Alex Assembly Hall of the Houston Kingdom's Royal Academy, Baron Canton steps forward to welcome everyone as the teacher for this year's required education. He stands before a crowd of talented healers. Baron Canton eagerly waits for a chance to ruin Raymond's reputation. He points him out as the one person who doesn't fit in. Whispers and rumors quickly spread, painting Raymond as a shameless fraud. Canton even jokes with his friends about a rat in their midst, clearly targeting Baron Raymond, also known as Raymond. Hansen is almost bursting with anger at this old man, but Ray, using his Steel of Heart ability, remains completely calm. The insults slide off him, and he coolly activates his Facing the Boar skill. With newfound confidence, he finally breaks the awkward silence. He tells Canton calmly that it's fine, but it sounds like the man is imagining things. The future great healer explains that as a fellow healer with an open mind, he understands a lot. Still, he's genuinely surprised to see a man of Baron Canton's status lost in delusions. He even expresses concern for Cannon's health, suggesting it might be early signs of dementia. And that remark hits hard. Baron Canton quickly brushes it off and tells everyone to sit down and enjoy the company. Then, a blonde student from Maple Linden offers Hansen a seat, but the bullies pull Linden back. They sneer that seats are only for real healers, not dirty rats of witchcraft. Linden gets humiliated in front of everyone. Ray steps in, flashing his badge of honor, and reminds them that a true healer shows respect in front of St. Alex's badge. Suddenly, Linden loudly congratulates Ray, drawing everyone's attention. Hansen wastes no time calling out the bullies, saying they are the real rats for slandering others instead of acting like proper healers. Baron Canton quickly stops the commotion by announcing the rules for the first test. He stresses that healing power is the most important skill, counting for 50% of the total score. Anyone scoring below 60 must give up their license immediately. He also makes it clear that an F grade means complete failure. Canton clearly believes Ray must have used connections to get the king's support, but that won't help here. If Ray fails the healing power test, failure is unavoidable. Meanwhile, the great healer and Hansen quietly try to figure out their next move. That's when Ray speaks up and asks if there are bonus points for healers who have raised their healing grade. Hansen looks completely confused. Baron Canton can't hide his smug grin after hearing what he thinks is such a ridiculous question. Healing mana is something people are born with and cannot change, no matter how hard they try. Knowing Raymond's reputation as a full-fledged troublemaker, Canton decides to give him false hope just to enjoy his failure. He actually declares that bonus points will count in this test, thinking it will only humiliate Raymond further. But Ray grins, knowing full well the old man just walked into his trap. Linden, however, is genuinely worried, since it's obvious to anyone that healing grades cannot be raised, at least not normally. The young man is completely puzzled by Raymond's calm attitude. Aaron Canton continues testing everyone. He tests everyone until it's Linden's turn. Linden ends up getting a grade D. Then comes Raymond's turn. Canton calls for Baronet Pennant to show his healing powers. Dr. Ray confidently raises his hand. Canton can't help but smile mischievously, thinking this will be the moment Raymond embarrasses himself. However, the Shadow Prince makes sure to confirm that the bonus points are officially in play. Canton mocks him, saying it doesn't matter since he won't score high anyway. Linden, still worried about Ray, starts to notice something odd just by looking at his hands. Canton repeats that no one can raise their grade just by trying harder. Normally, Raymond's luck would give him a random grade like anyone else. But this time he activates his mana, unlocking the 4th mana storage center called Mana Vein. This triggers the Mana Flux skill, which transfers blood and energy into the upper key center known as Mana Channel, the middle one called Mana Heart, and the lower one known as Mana Hole. It turns out he gained this skill after awakening the Mana Vein, something no one expected. Because of this, Raymond can now use his mana for more than just casting spells. Thankfully, his mana stats have grown from 1 to 7.5. It might not sound like a huge leap, but even small, steady progress can make a big difference, just like how single drops of water can eventually soak the floor. So, by sending every bit of his mana into his mana channel, the flow of energy becomes impossible to ignore. The crowd is drawn to it, and Baron Canton is completely stunned when he sees Grade C healing powers. He is absolutely speechless. Meanwhile, the senior resident is bouncing with joy inside for getting grade C. Of course, it's basically unheard of for someone to develop healing abilities like this, since it's supposed to be innate and come from the upper chi centers. He obviously cannot go around saying he has a 7/5 mana stat that matches grade C, but flooding all his mana outward definitely gave that impression. The Baron's mind is blown by what looks like a straight-up miracle. Dr. Ray, with a smug smile, casually credits his hard work caring for patients. Even though healing is usually seen as an inborn talent, Baronet Pennant somehow pushed beyond that and actually improved it. Linden was born a grade D healer, which meant there were limits to how much he could help people, but he imagines breaking through those limitations. Later on, Ray the Baronet Pennant receives the highest score in the compulsory education at St. Alex Royal Academy, thanks to his dedication to studying hard. Coming up are the writing exam, knowledge of the human body, treatment debates, and herbology, all subjects he had already mastered even before the medical science miracle happened to him. Raymond knows he is still lacking in pure healing power, so he puts in extra effort to make up for it. But when it comes to medical knowledge, no one even comes close. Plus, his intelligence stat recently shot up to 23, which helps him make better use of everything he has learned. Aaron Canton is clearly struggling to keep his composure, and the disgust on his face is impossible to miss. But Ray still shines bright as a diamond. The other healers are utterly stunned, their jaws practically dropping as they watch Ray achieve the highest scores. Most of them are convinced something must be wrong. Right there on stage, Ray flashes a big grin like a carefree goat and teases the others, asking if they've been working hard and losing sleep. He even throws in a jab, hoping they aren't planning to settle for being a bunch of C ranks. Next, the Baron brings out a cart, knowing Raymond is close to becoming the top scorer, and he has already lost his chance to disqualify him. Healer Ray and Hansen are now shining in a whole new light, and Baron Canton just can't stand it. This fussy jerk still has a trick up his sleeve, planning to give Raymond a wound that can never be healed. Without wasting any time, he announces the final practical exam. When he yanks the cloth off the cart, everyone is shocked by the sight of an orc monster. Hansen is panicking like a headless chicken. Baron explains that the orc has harmed many people, but for today it is their patient. He reassures them that the orc has been given plenty of anesthetic herbs, so no one is in danger. With a mischievous grin, he orders them to heal the wound on the orc's body. Since Raymond is going first, Baron had already decided to inflict a wound that would be impossible for him to heal. Without hesitation, he stabs the orc, making all the healers flinch. That move wakes the beast, and the Baron starts trembling like a leaf under its towering shadow. To make matters worse, the orc's leash comes loose, and it's just about to go wild. It swings a punch that nearly smashes the Baron's face in.